hang out.
Ew. This is where all the cool kids are today, at least. All right, so we have 29 people. I'm looking around and I'm seeing we have lots of our amazing tag here today. So let's get this meeting started. Well, welcome. Some of you are new members of the tag, and I'm kind of give instructions or give kind of an overview for everybody, and that will especially help the new members that we have today. And then after we do that, then we'll do a roll call to see who's actually here, and then we're going to do the agenda and all that. So welcome. You are all in for a treat. We get to spend many weeks together, several hours on each Friday to do this. So if you haven't already, please block out your Fridays from 8:30 to probably 2 p.m. We might get done early some days. We will be in the end of these sessions sending a draft proposed code recommendation to the MVE committee, Mechanical Ventilation Energy Committee, and then they will review it and send it on to the council to be put out for public comment. So that's upcoming. So we'll meet perhaps 5 times for several hours between now and the middle of June. So I bought donuts for every one of you, but since I can't give them to you, I have to eat them all myself. So sorry about that. So first, we're trying to achieve consensus in this meeting. So the focus is on discussion. We're going to tend towards discussion and technical resolution so that we have a good code that people can follow and enforce and all that. And it's technically feasible to get done. Anyone on the tag can make a motion. We need a second for any motion, and then we can vote on things. We can amend motions and do all the things within Robert's rules, but we are not bound entirely to Robert's rules based on the bylaws of the council. There are lots of other rules, but you'll kind of figure them out. And if you have any questions, you can just email me or just ask a question at any point. This is going to be virtual, which has some advantages and disadvantages. No commuting is great, but it's also very difficult to see you. And normally what I would do is look for lots of heads nodding when someone says something and say, okay, we're ready to vote on this. We have achieved general consensus. In lieu of that, because I can't see heads nodding, because I can't see anybody's heads, I will ask you often to use your reactions. So please right now, if you're on the tag, look for your reactions button. It should be on the bottom next to mute and stop video or start video and other things. And you will be able to put a thumbs up for yes, I love what is being said, or you can even clap if you're that kind of a person. You can heart it, you can celebrate it. You can also use, there's a red X. You can also say, no, that's I don't agree with that at all. The red X and the green check mark both stay up until you click them again. So if you red X something by saying you don't like it, then please take that down after I ask the question. And that is, it's not a vote. It is simply normally I would see heads nodding and people kind of, yes, that sounds good. So at any point, please do use your reactions. And sometimes I will ask for reactions on things. No soliloquies, except this one. Please stick to relevant facts. We've got a lot to cover. And we want to be respectful of all the people's time. We have 45 people here. So we don't need a history of the code. We don't need to repeat comments. So you can say, I agree with the previous speaker. I have one thing to add. That's a good way to say something rather than restating their comments. Or you can just use your reactions to suggest that you agree with them. Since we're going until noon today, we'll only take a short break around 10 or 10:30, wherever it works out for people. Krista and I will strategize the various meetings to cover topics in an order that will hopefully avoid redoing things. For instance, our 406 options table will cover not today, but in future meetings, so we can agree on certain things such that we don't have to revisit the 406 table again many times. Often we will have homework. So there's some substantive proposals that we're going to cover today. And out of those, we'll probably ask the proponent to convene a group of any interested party on the call today, or that's not on the call today, to hammer out some compromises or some better technical language or whatever. So homework will be given. We're not allowed to email the entire group. That's considered a quorum. So if you get an email from Krista that includes all the tag members, you cannot reply all. Please don't do that. That violates the quorum rules, and we can't do that. So if you have something that you think is absolutely essential for the entire tag to get, email Krista or Stoyan, and they will perhaps email the whole group with that, or wait until the next meeting to tell people about it. Mute, stay on mute. Mute until you are talking. Lower your hand when you ask your question. So under reactions, there's also this raise hand feature. That is how I will recognize people and give them the floor to talk about an issue. So raise your hand and I will write you down in the order in which I see you, which is usually the order in which you raise your hand, but it's not always. So if you raise your hand for a while and I haven't gotten to you and you think other people have gotten ahead of you, just let me know. Just unmute and say something like that. I'm going to do as well as I can, but some of these issues we're going to have 20 people that want to talk on it. So I will do the best I can. And then lower your hand as soon as you have talked, because otherwise I will ask you if you still have something to say. Cameras can be on or off. It's your discretion. If you are a proponent or you want to be fully engaged in the discussion, please turn on your camera, but you don't have to. If you have an alternate for your position, please talk to them, or if you are the alternate, about sessions you cannot make. We want everybody here today and at all the meetings so that we have all the voices heard, and your particular focus to be part of the answer that we have. Nothing is more frustrating than showing up to a meeting and then realizing we don't have a quorum. So if you're going to miss a meeting, let us know. And for the commercial code, at least, I kept a spreadsheet of people who couldn't make certain meetings, and we avoided proposals from those people at those meetings. And like for lighting people, we avoided the lighting proposals at meetings where the lighting people couldn't show up. That kind of thing. If you don't have an alternate and you think you should, then reach out to me and or someone who you think could be a good alternate, and then I will appoint them. Thank you again. Mute, use emoticons, no soliloquies. Are there any questions at this point about the tag process? Okay, so the things we're supposed to do is we have many proposals. Some are on the agenda today. And the legislature has been kind enough to provide us with some hard mandates that have been in place for several years. So we have to hit a 70% energy use reduction target by the year 2030. That's 4 code cycles away, including this one. And the commercial code that we just considered in the other energy code tag had to hit around a 19% energy use reduction because it was way behind. The residential tag is actually doing, or the residential energy code is actually, according to the analysis, doing okay. And so we only have to hit probably between a 14 and 16% energy use reduction this cycle. So good job for the last few tags, and that we got codes that are generally nearly tracking with a legislative mandate on that. So we need incremental improvement. There are a few documents. I actually wanted to, can I share a screen really briefly, Krista?
Go right ahead.
All right, I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of the Building Code Council website. And I guess when I was first on a tag, I didn't know a lot of this stuff. So this is the council website. You can find everything you need to know here. So the 2021 code adoption cycle, if you go there, you can see all the stuff about the various codes that are being adopted, including the one you're working on. If you click on see all events, you can see all the upcoming meetings that have been scheduled. So you can see energy code meetings that have been scheduled here. You can find agendas. Occasionally agendas are updated, 3 or 4 days before. So you can always find the latest agenda and meeting documents by going to the page for the day. So for instance, today you can see there's attachments. So if you're interested, you can find the agenda, the link, the attachments, and then in a week or two, you will see a recording of this entire wonderful discussion today, and you will also see a draft meeting minutes there. So I just wanted everybody to know that this is all available. There's occasionally news items here, and there's lots and lots of stuff. If you want to see who's on the tags, you can also do that. The next thing, so these are the targets right here. The residential code is this light green one right here. And so it's nearly tracking with this line right here. This is working towards a 2030 target right here. The blue line is 14% reduction per cycle against the previous cycle. And the red one is 8.75% reduction from the original one every cycle. So the red is the kind of more painful line, and the blue is the kind of the incremental every cycle. And so that's the one we're kind of close to with the residential code. So we're in a bit better shape. The other thing is that there's another document is the code review and adoption cycle. And we are kind of here. We've accepted proposals for the group 2 codes. And now we are in the tag process here. And our work ideally is done by the June 17th meeting. So it can be put out for a public comment on the CR 102, and then there will be a council discussions on those. So that is my welcome and introduction. Thank you all for being here. And this is the only time I'm going to talk for this long. Other than that, I'm going to stay out of everybody's hair and just try and direct an efficient meeting where we go through all of these and discuss them to everybody's, or to most people's satisfaction, I guess. Are there any questions at this point? Gary, I did see your hand up earlier. Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to let you know that somewhere around 9:30, 9:40, I'm going to have to leave the meeting. Hope to be back no later than 11 o'clock. But Kevin Duell, who is my alternate, I believe right now he's called in on the phone, but will be on the meeting. And during that time, he'll be voting in my stead, and I'll let you all know that when I'm leaving the meeting, and then when I get back in the meeting. So I appreciate that consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And we generally have a practice of not considering people's proposals when they're gone. So we will defer I think you have 2 proposals today, maybe 3. We will not consider those while you're gone. So when you get back, let us know, and we'll bring them up if they're kind of next in the list. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let me see. There's a
speed one and a water heating one, I think. Yeah.
Service water heating. Yeah. And Kevin will be on. So, I'm fine either way. If you want to hold it until I'm back, that's fine. If you want to cover it, Kevin will be on the meeting. But I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, Gary, I guess I'll just ask you directly. I mean, if you as the proponent want to be here, we will make that a priority. If you think Kevin can cover it adequately, then without you being here, then we can cover it. But if you want to be here, we're going to kick some of these down the road today because the proponent's not in the room. So want to make sure you have a chance to speak your piece when we first consider your proposals.
Okay, then I would appreciate it then if there's a proposal that I didn't think any of mine in particular were on the agenda today. Might be wrong. I know that service hot water systems, actually Kevin put that one together.
Okay.
But would certainly want to be here with anything with my name on it for sure. Thanks.
Okay, definitely. And you said what time are you gone?
Well, somewhere between 9:30 and 9:40. Hope to be back no later than 11 o'clock. And again, I'll let you know in the chat when I'm leaving and when I get back.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Lisa, you also emailed us when you're going to be gone. So we've got that as well. Were you going to say something else?
Yeah, all I was going to say is I actually have 6 proposals on the agenda today. So all of my proposals are coming up today. And, you know, one of them is early in the day. If there are 3 that if it's possible to move them earlier, I need to jump off around 10:30 to 11 today. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, we will. Yeah, I think we'll. Yeah, we're about to. Yeah, I think we'll accommodate that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so let's do a roll call. Krista, see who's here.
Okay, hopefully I have everybody on my list. If I miss you, please let me know. Chell Anderson,
Present.
Mike Fowler,
I'm here. Good morning.
Mark Sniffen,
Yeah, present.
Jeremy Moore, Wade Craig,
Wade Craig here.
Dwayne Johnlin,
Good morning.
Dave Balon,
Here.
Lisa Rosenau, Lisa, you're muted.
We know you're here.
There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Good morning.
Jonathan Jones, David Reddy,
Here.
Gary Hickinen,
Here.
Kevin Duell,
Here.
Andrea Smith,
Present.
Irina Rasputnis,
Present.
Chris Burrows,
Here.
Amy Wheelis,
Here.
Poppy Storm,
Present.
Greg Davenport,
Present.
Albert Rooks,
Present.
Henry Odom,
Here.
Gavin Tenold,
Here.
John Lang,
Present.
Patrick Hayes,
Present.
Luke Howard,
Present.
Bill Kraus, and that is everyone on my list. Did I miss anyone?
I'm just
So-
checking on my list because we. Did you say Jason Carter?
No.
Okay, Jason Carter had just been appointed for MEP contractor. That was
Chell, this is Greg. Do you want me to text Jason and see if he can make it?
I'm present.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I've got him added to the list.
That was Yeah, okay. That was, I think, the only. Okay. All right, well, shall we then consider the agenda? Oh, Gary.
Sorry again, Jill. I noticed in the chat that if I go to the chat, it looks like I can only send direct messages to either you or Krista or Stoyan, and not to everyone. Is that on purpose?
Staff set up the meeting. I assume it's on purpose.
Okay,
Actually, on tags, I try to set it up for everyone, but I think I still had my settings set for the MVE committee meeting, which was the last one I set up. So I apologize. I'll need to relay any messages that are on the chat.
Good question, Gary.
so when I let you guys know that I'm leaving, should I send that to Krista or you, Chal, or just want to make sure that you guys know?
You can send it to me and
Okay.
I can send it to everyone. I see that function on my phone machine.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, so we have an agenda in front of us. The agenda has a lot of things on it, and I am going to, based on all the input of people who have to leave or not leave, suggest that we move to approve the agenda with the modification that Lisa's proposals, that's 88, 81, 82, 71, 72, and 89, are considered before we get to 065, because I think that's when we'll start getting into longer discussion items, and that 084, well, I think we can cover 084. Okay, so that I guess I'll hope that someone can make a motion to approve the agenda with that one modification that Lisa's are moved earlier, and that Dan is not able to be here, and so 79 and 46 per our general practice of not entertaining proposals, or rather moving proposals when the proponent's not available for the meeting, that we don't consider 79 and 46 today. Anybody else want to suggest modifications to the agenda?
We can make that last thing you said contingent on whether the proponent, maybe they're just not showing up for the first hour because they don't have stuff scheduled.
Yeah. We know Dan is not able to make it today.
So where are you moving all of Lisa's things again?
I was thinking before 065.
Okay. I would like to move that we adopt the agenda with the change in the location of Lisa's 6 and possibly postponing Dan's.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All right. Further discussion. Okay, all in favor, all tag members in favor. And I know for some of the tag members, if you are a tag member and you have an alternate and you don't know who's here or not, please think about who's here or not. You're not supposed to vote if you're the alternate and the primary is here. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. All in favor of the motion, which is to approve the agenda with those modifications, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have an agenda. Now we need to review the, oh, go ahead, Patrick.
I'd like to make a motion that we do a roll call vote. There's a lot of pretty significant things There's been recent discussion on news radio regarding the Seattle City Council and Zoom meetings and inaccuracies in voting. So I think that a roll call vote is appropriate to make sure that we have an accurate count.
Is that a motion, Patrick?
Yes, that is a motion for a roll call vote.
On every single thing we vote on?
How do you want to do it so that it's the most significant ones, Shell?
Well, I guess I can take discretion on each one, or you could make a motion like we did last time that if there are one
Well,
dissenting vote.
let's do it this way. If there's one nay, then we do a roll call vote.
Okay, what if there's a bark?
Pardon me?
What if there's a dog barking or so?
That's mine.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and Patrick, do you want to state the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we have a roll call vote if there is one nay vote, so we make sure that we're accurate. If there's consensus, hey, quiet. If there's
Okay, we have a
consensus,
motion on
then
the-
it's not necessary.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll
I will
second.
second. This is Amy.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Could we mute the dog there for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, is there further discussion on this motion? David?
Yeah, I think I oppose this motion. The chair has the discretion to call a roll call vote on any subject, anytime. And one minor vote against a particular seems like it's not really a problem that we have to solve. Most of the time, this problem is when we have actually a reasonable split. And I think the chair is certainly capable of knowing when the split is sufficient that he has to actually engage in a roll call. I would defer to the chair's discretion here rather than to make some kind of general rule that'll drag down the committee on a whole lot of not terribly controversial proposals.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
And
Mark?
I'm sorry, I didn't see who the second was on that motion. Who was that?
It was Amy or Dwayne. I think we said at the same time.
No, it was not me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I second it. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then just for everybody's knowledge, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes every time we do a roll call vote. So just put that out there. We're gonna do lots and lots of voting, so just wanted that piece of information out there. Mark?
Yeah, is it possible to use the reaction count, like the thumbs up, that you look and just say numbers of reactions? So
I think that's challenging because I can't see everybody at the same time, and if I miss one, sometimes they go up for like a minute or just 5 seconds, and I think that would be, from a technical perspective, challenging. I would love to do that, but I think
because
there's technical
roll
reasons.
calls are lengthy, I know that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, thanks, Mark. Kevin?
Oh, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to point out that Robert's rules allows any member to call a roll call vote at any time. So it's really up to anybody who wants to call it, not just the chair.
Yep. And from discussing with staff earlier today, we are not beholden to Robert's rules, but certainly as the chair, if someone reasonably thinks that this is a contentious issue and we should have a roll call vote, I will certainly call a roll call vote for that issue. Dwayne?
yeah, I just wanted to, there's a difference between unanimous and consensus. And if there's, if it's 2 or 3 voices to 17, on the other side or something like that, then that doesn't need a roll call vote just every time anybody contested anything. But if you as the chair can't tell, or if there might be any doubt, then yeah, call a roll call.
Yep. Sounds reasonable. So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second for it. I see no more hands up. And since this is the first meeting and not everybody maybe is as good as technology as others or experienced at it, I just want to make sure that if you have something to say and you can't find your raise your hand, you can always type it in the chat to Krista or me, and we will attempt to give you the floor or whatever. So just want to make sure the technology is not in the way of anybody participating. Okay, but I don't see any more hands up or anything chatted. So all in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Hey,
Okay. All right. Well, as the chair, I'm going to call for a roll call vote here. So, Krista, do your magic.
Okay, Mike Fowler,
No.
Mark Sniffen,
no,
Wade Craig,
Yes.
Dwayne Johnlin,
No.
Dave Balon,
no,
David Reddy,
No.
Gary Hickinen,
Yes.
Andrea Smith,
Yes.
Irina Resputness,
No.
Amy Willis,
Yes.
Greg Davenport,
No.
Henry Odom,
No.
Gavin Tenold,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
No.
Jason Carter,
No.
motion fails 6-10.
Okay. For those that voted yes, I will do my best to make sure that we do a roll call when there is noticeable dissension. So, okay, Andrea.
Yeah, I was curious where the status of the trade association seat, the vacancy that's currently open, where the status of that is at.
Yeah, we have one person who applied for it, and the chair is considering that application currently.
Thank you. Just to follow up to that as well, when do you think there will be a determination made?
I thought there would be one by today, but I don't have one yet. So probably within the week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's minute time. Let's talk about the minutes of December 17th. 2021, if anyone can remember that far back. So this was the integrated draft meeting where we got together and talked about the model code and how that matched up with the last Washington State Energy Code residential draft. I think we extended the meeting and got through it all in one session, which is pretty solid. Are there any discussions on the meeting minutes of that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the minutes of the December 17th meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Greg.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. And yeah, to help Krista, it's great if you do what Greg did was when you do a second, you say your name after your second. Okay, is there further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, well, we're on to the proposals and we're starting with a fairly big one. Dwayne, do you want to take the floor?
Thank you, sure. This proposal moves low rise, that's 1 to 3 story multifamily, from the residential code into the commercial code. It fixes a fundamental problem with the way that energy codes were originally set up, 25 years ago. And the first thing is that it is alignment. The other construction codes, in particular the building code versus residential code, put single family houses and townhouse in one category and then everything else in another. And then that flows into the mechanical code and all the others. For consistency, there's just never been a reason that a 4-story apartment and a 3-story apartment should have to comply with entirely separate sets of rules. Creates ongoing confusion, makes life harder for everybody involved. There's no reason that a 3-story hotel should comply with an entirely different code from a 3-story apartment building. They're built by the same contractors. This analysis was that you see in the proposal for looking at energy savings was done by for NEA, shows that overall energy use is going to be the same for residential and for commercial compliance. So we're not doing any rollback. One big exception, though, that we did note is what is known as woody walk-ups. These used to be really common every place now, but they're still being built in some places around the state. And and by woody walk-up, we mean that there's no interior corridor. There's 2 or 3 stories of exterior access apartments along walkways, and they seem to have better performance under the residential code when it was analyzed than they would if we moved those into the commercial code. So we made an exception for that, but I'm not entirely married to that issue if people think that it would be better to have those in with the code as well. So striking a blow for simplicity and consistency, and I hope to start moving this up the chain into the national standards as well. That's it.
Thanks, Dwayne. I guess just having the view of other codes, this would help align with the ventilation codes or other kinds of codes, because they're differentiated based on. Can you talk a little bit about the other codes that this would either help align with or misalign with?
Yeah, right now we have that difference between a 3 and a 4-story building. As soon as you're in a 4-story building, then you have another set of codes for mechanical and so forth that you have to kick into, which don't apply when you're a 3-story building. But the most fundamental part of it is the building code versus residential, where most things live. So this has been a long-standing tradition, but it never really did have a good basis in fact.
Okay, and one other, I guess, just fundamental question is, does this require any changes to any other codes for this definition to be enforceable and consistent?
No, the way I set it up was that it just points you from the residential code to the commercial side of the code, and it leaves the commercial side of the code alone. It may be, if we take this on, that we want to go and put pointers in some other parts of the residential energy code that mention R2 buildings, to say, hey, by the way, unless you're a woody walk-up, this wouldn't apply.
Okay, but I guess, are there other codes like the IBC or residential building code or others that would need to be modified based on this proposal?
I'm not sure that if there's a marker in the other codes that points back at this, but this still works, because even if there are other codes that are pointing at this says, if you're an apartment building, please flip over to the other side of your code and comply with the commercial side.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne. Sean had their hand up first.
Hi, Sean Denniston from New Buildings Institute. Speaking in favor of this, I think we consistently see an issue in the codes of just consistency between low-rise and high-rise multifamily, or where we solve a problem for multifamily in one code, but we don't solve it in the other. And so I think that this is a really good way to bring consistency to our multifamily dwelling units, to be able to bring enhancements to the multifamily market in a really consistent way. This is not trailblazing. You know, Denver has done this. I think Boulder has done this. There are other jurisdictions that have considered it. It is really odd that the energy code is the one code where you have what is technically a commercial occupancy, multifamily R2, being regulated by a residential code. So I think it makes more sense. It deals with this weird historical oddity that we have. And I think that we'll end up with better buildings and better code if we go this direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. I have Patrick next on my list.
Dwayne, I have a couple questions.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Dwayne. Good to hear your voice. So item 4, so you're still saying that the group R2, 3 stories and less, where you access directly from exterior, also known as woody walk-ups, still fall under the residential code, but you're only trying to move like double loaded corridors to the commercial code that are 3 stories and less? Is that the goal?
Yes, I'm buildings that are access, have exterior access, and are 3 stories or less would remain in the residential code.
So my second question then is, because I do a lot of these under this 18 code, where the previous code cycle, I didn't do a lot. And now with this new code, they're all landing on my desk. Why not move the exterior access ones as well?
Patrick, I would personally consider that as a friendly amendment. However, I have to say that Mike Lubliner and a couple other people were insistent that it was important to keep that particular type together with single family. They said that it was typically, they were typically built by single family builders, and they were just happier on with the way that went. And also we saw that it would end up being a little bit of an energy rollback, like 5% or something, if we were to move that particular type into the commercial code. So
I would disagree with Mike on that, and of who's building these. And second, regarding the energy rollback, just for example, we have proposals on the plate coming up that are going to most likely require heat pump water heaters in these sort of buildings. It is virtually impossible to put a heat pump water heater in the 3-story and less externally accessed buildings unless you put the heat pump water heater on a balcony. Well, if this building design does not have balconies, where are you going to put the heat pump water heater? Because they need access to cool, fresh air for them to work. And if these buildings were moved to the commercial code, it would not mandate heat pump water heaters. There would be other ways to get around it in C406 to get your credits. So it's a little bigger thing than just the envelope. And like I said, it's on I've got 5 of them on my desk right now. They're very challenging under this 18 code to get even your 4.5 credits. So I think I'll make a friendly amendment to include what I've always called, Dwayne, as you know, the black hole R2 buildings. The exterior ones exterior access to go to the other code as well.
Okay, Patrick, is that a motion?
That's a motion, a motion friendly amendment to include the exterior accessed ones to move to the other side of the code.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. So do we have a second for that motion?
This is David. I'd second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. I just want, as the chair, say that I would rather hear from everybody before we decide to make motions on this. You, as a tag, can make motions anytime you want, but I would like to hear from everybody before we start amending it. Nonetheless, a motion has been made, so is there further discussion on the motion? And I'm assuming everybody who had their hand up earlier still wants their hand up, so I will call on them in order. And the next person is Andrea. And Andrea, do you pronounce it Andrea or?
Yeah, it's Andrea.
Andrea, okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make you get it right. All right, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Andrea from BIW. I would say that we're opposed to this simply because by and large, building under IBC is typically more expensive than building under IRC. And as many of you know, right now, we already have a housing shortage, and 3 and 4 level low-rise apartments are a very important part to solving our housing affordability crisis. So I would just suggest that we respectfully vote this down and not deviate from what the ICC has as their definitions. Thank you.
Could I ask Andrea a question about that?
Please, I was going to ask a question, and it's probably the same question.
Andrea, I was thinking that this actually might be a little less expensive, in particular because of the envelope provisions. Do you have any cost data to show that the cost would go up in this case for a 3-story apartment building?
Yeah, I can get some to you early next week.
Sure.
I've just had preliminary conversations with people. I don't have anything written up, but yeah.
And Andrea, were you speaking against the entire proposal or just the amendment that was made?
The entire proposal, simply because I don't think that we should deviate from what ICC has as their definitions.
Okay. Thank you. And then I guess to Dwayne and Andrea both, Andrea, you said that this would move some buildings from the IBC or from the IRC to the IBC. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
That's not
Dwayne,
correct. That is not correct. They're already in the IBC.
Yeah,
Well,
that's actually not true. That's under these black hole buildings. A lot of them are permitted under the IBC, but energy code wise, they're still under the residential code.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. That's what I meant to say is I don't think that we should move it to the energy code for commercial.
Okay.
Sorry. Getting my codes mixed up over here.
well, it's really confusing. I had the same question, Andrea. So, okay. Next person I have on the list is Dave Balon.
Yeah, well, I don't think this is a good idea to strike our 2 buildings from the proposal. It is true that that these are somewhat different buildings, but for the most part, they're quite similar. I should point out that our energy code for heat pump water heaters and for a vast array of other measures are options. And if heat pump water heaters are inappropriate or unable to be done or are too expensive for this, then there's other alternatives. The second thing about this is I guess I have mixed feelings about the entire proposal, but for the most part, the only real issue that I know of is the cross references to our 2 buildings in the IMC, which would have to be fixed. But I don't think those are more than just code references that need to be pointed to another place. So in effect, I guess I'm speaking against the amendment.
The amendment, but do you generally support the proposal, but just don't like the amendment, or?
I don't like the amendments. I don't like the proposal that much, but I'm probably not going to oppose it.
Okay. Lisa, you're next on my list, on the list that I wrote down.
Good morning, thank you. I actually would like to voice my statement of support for this proposal from the perspective of technical support. This is, I like Patrick's description, this kind of a black hole building. No, this is difficult. Designers that are working on multifamily projects, this division on whether, how many stories above grade is always problematic for them. There are complexes that actually can have both, where some of the buildings are, 3 stories or less, and some of them are 4 stories, and now they're having to do this mixed code project. And so we feel that this would definitely simplify the energy code. It would help both jurisdictions and designers, in that I think it would be more enforceable if they're all underneath the commercial code. I'm not opposed at all to the amendment to move woody walk-ups over to the commercial code as well. However, I would defer to the report that evaluated whether there was a rollback or not. So in general, from a technical support perspective, we think this would be very helpful.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I have David ready next.
Yeah, I support this kind of for the reasons that Lisa mentioned, at least in terms of applying provisions of the code. I find that when you get to 3 and 4 story, even woody walk-ups, it makes more sense to apply the commercial code provisions. I mean, I have personal experience working on projects that are 3 and 4 story woody walk-ups, and primarily in the affordable housing domain. I find a lot of 4 story woody walk-ups, and it's quite awkward to be like, oh, we're under a new code just by adding a floor of development. And we have 3 story woody walk-ups that have enclosed the stairwell just to try and achieve air barrier or air leakage performance. So I think that just making those small changes and putting you into a different code doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think that's why I'm supportive of getting rid of the exception as well. I think that the small compromise on energy shown by the study is reasonable and, in the margin of error. So I support this change.
Thanks, David. I have Mike Kennedy next, who used to have his hand up, but I don't see him anymore. Mike Kennedy, are you in the room? Okay, then it's Kevin is next. Kevin Dwell.
I'm here.
Oh, there's
Mike. Mike is available.
Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I went and looked at the commercial code, and I think if you leave this and this is a little off where we've been going in the conversation, but I think you would want to adjust the definition of the commercial code if you made this change.
Mike, I didn't see a way to do that since the commercial code has already been kind of set. So I tried to make it all just work in the residential code.
Right. Well, I think it'll be a matter of interpretation. And if it changed in the commercial code, it wouldn't have to get interpreted. That's all I'm saying. So, because at this point, you'd have 2 conflicting codes.
Mr. Chair, do you know, or Krista, do you know if it would be possible to go back and revise the definition in the commercial code at this point?
Mr. Chair does not know.
I would recommend that after the process is done, we could move forward with an expedited rule to correlate the two codes rather than to reopen portion of the commercial code and try to move that simultaneously with this. I think it would be a much smoother process to just do it after the fact with a expedited rule.
Thank you.
Ms. Krista?
The alternate, I suppose, would be to make this an optional path for those buildings.
Hmm.
No, that would be even worse confusion. I would not support that.
Okay, but it does seem like you could say, hey, these are an exception and put it,
Actually, Dwayne, I think right now it is optional that if you wanted to take an R2 Woody walk up and permit it under the commercial code, you could. It's not mandatory that building, that's why I've always called them the black hole. You can go on either side. It's back to kind of what Andrea talked about, dollars and cents. And what you talked about as the type of general contractor. Some of them are deathly afraid of the commercial code, where others are, no, we want to be on that side of the fence.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. And Mike, Kevin, you are next.
Thank you, Shell. First of all, a process question about Robert's rules. I know we're not abiding by those strictly, but it's my understanding that if a motion is in play, only the members can speak unless recognized by the body. Is that what we're doing here? Is we're just doing just general discussion, even if a motion is in play?
Yeah, I guess my understanding is that we are not required to use Robert's rules. We're going to try and use them as we can, but as we're trying to, my understanding of this process is that we're trying to get out the good discussion that we need to make informed decisions. And so I guess I'm making the interpretation that tag members, alternates, and the public can speak at this point. But if you want to challenge that, then we could get people involved and try and figure out if there is something prohibiting that from happening, Kevin.
Oh, no, my intention is not to make this more difficult, just to make the rules should support the process, not the other way around. So I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on the process.
Yeah, the process we've used for everybody's kind of information in the past has been long discussion. Then at the end of it, someone makes a motion, and then since we've already achieved consensus or somewhere near consensus with discussion, the motion is easier to make, and then we vote on it, and maybe we make an amendment later to that motion. What happened today was that someone made a motion at the beginning, which is more in alignment with Robert's rules, but less in alignment with kind of having a really good, robust discussion on a major issue. So if we were beholden to Robert's rules, there would be certain things required. I'm erring on the side of robust discussion. So that, I guess that's where we're going, is the motion was made early. In practice, we have in the past just let the discussion go and then made a motion. Robert's rules would say you need to make a motion before you discuss anything, and we haven't been required to or followed that particular practice of Robert's rules.
Fantastic, appreciate the clarification. That was just my first question. So let's see, a couple things. I agree that this is a confusing portion of the code. That struck me from the beginning decades ago. However, the code is confusing in general. And also Washington code is particularly confusing because it deviates from the ICC in a lot of different ways. And that's my concern with this proposal, is it's yet another deviation from ICC. And I'm wondering if this is the place to adjudicate this change, or if that should come top down from the ICC, and therefore it could be coordinated among all the international codes and not just bottom up from Washington. That's more of a code process question, but And the other question is, or comment rather, folks have made some statements about heat pump water heaters being optional, but in the commercial code, they're not, they're mandatory, except in some rarefied exceptions. So this would actually push these groups of buildings into that state. And I mean, at the moment, we don't know what the residential code will be. That's what we're talking about now. But the commercial code is quite stringent on heat pump water heaters. And even the proposals that we have coming up today or before us for heat pump water heating and heat pump space heating for that matter are less restrictive in many ways than the commercial code. So just some complications that I see. My suggestion would be to adjudicate this at the international level, not at the state level. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I respond as chair of the IECC Commercial Committee?
I think so. Thanks, Kevin. And Dwayne, yeah, I guess, and others that are involved in the national or international code development process. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, innovation doesn't actually happen typically at the national level. Innovation happens in Washington and California and New York and Austin and Denver. And then those things get picked up and proposed at the national level. And it always makes it more possible to do something at the national level when you can point to a state that says, we're already doing this, it's working out fine. And so we run kind of in the opposite direction, typically with the way codes are developed here in the US. And just a thing about the heat pump water heater, that applies to central systems, central water heating systems. What I've noted is that on the low-rise construction, especially outside of Seattle, where it's, people can spread out a little bit more, that in-unit water heaters are quite common, and those aren't restricted by either code. Thank you.
And Kevin, I saw your hand go up again. If you have further thoughts, you still have the floor.
Okay. So a question on that then. What you're saying about innovation makes sense. That would come from the outside. My other concern was about coordination, since this essentially reworks the structure of the international codes. I would think that would be easier to manage at the international committee level versus at the state level.
Just the energy code. It doesn't rework any of the other codes.
Correct, but don't the other codes rely on this structure?
Not really.
Fair enough. But then my other question was, I'm confused about the heat pump water heater provisions of the commercial code, apparently, because as I read it, it says service water heating shall be provided by heat pump water heaters.
Central.
So there's a provision for individual water heaters that's separate?
Yeah, we didn't attempt to regulate in-unit water heaters.
I appreciate that clarification.
Thanks, Kevin. I have Mike Fowler, then Henry, then Greg, then Mark Sniffen. So go ahead, Mike Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to speak in favor of how Dwayne has proposed this. What I like is that it aligns buildings with common areas such as interior corridors, lobbies, community room lounges. Puts all that, whether it's 2, 3, 4 stories all together. Units that have exterior entries, to me, are similar to, they have very similarities to 2- and 3-story townhomes when they have an exterior entry. So that's why I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Henry Odom.
Hi, thank you. I would say I'm in favor of this with the amendment, just purely from a consistency and approach, as some people have already mentioned, whether or not it's 2, 3, 4 stories, it's nice to know which code it falls under. Another thing it does, especially for interior corridors is the commercial code actually regulates those kinds of HVAC systems, whereas the residential code does not at all. Especially once you have some sort of common area, you know, lobby, offices, or anything. The residential code has very little guidance on how to meet those spaces. So I think in general, it's going to be a better code to improve the efficiency of all systems in this type of building. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Greg Davenport.
Good morning. I wanted to say I've worked on a lot of these low-rise multifamily projects over many years, and I am generally in favor of the proposal the way Dwayne originally wrote it. I think the woody walk-ups probably should stay under the residential code, so I'm not in favor of changing what is now redlined as item 4.
Thanks, Greg. Do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Mark Sniffen.
Yeah, generally I'm in favor of this code change. What bothers me is that the existing building code, and now all of a sudden a building's built under one code, and then you go to do an addition to it or modification of it, and now I'm using a different code to look at that buildings, and especially if it hits alteration level 3s or something like that. So I think the coordination would be important to make sure that that is applicable to all the codes. And it could be kind of confusing when you have existing buildings. Or does this only pertain to new construction, would be my question.
I'll let Dwayne respond to that. If
it would respond, it would, no, it's a really interesting point you raised. It would require that the new any alterations or additions be treated in the same way that the in the commercial code side. I would say that we do have this issue with every code cycle, because we typically don't have an alteration or a big addition to a building until it's at least 20 years old or something like that, and at which time the code has changed dramatically, even for the residential side of the code. And so we're always up against having an alteration project complying with different rules, better windows, thicker insulation, better mechanical systems than the original was built. So it's kind of par for the course already.
The other comment I had on that, I wasn't sure if that would change these accessory structures if you had parking for these woody walk-ups versus parking for a 4-story building.
What's the question?
Well, item 5 says the accessory structures to the residential buildings. So right. Would we have on-site parking considered a residential accessory structure on those, or it would seem like
well, that's already part of the definition of residential building and always has been in there. And really it was intended for, like, if you have a separate garage out in the back of a lot, or if you have a garden shed or a gazebo or something like that that's accessory to the house, or this doesn't. We clarified the language because there too wasn't very descriptive, so we just said 2 residential buildings, but that's already there in the code.
Yeah, but I didn't know if by changing it from an R3 to commercial, would that affect the accessory structures?
No R3s will be changed to commercial. R3s will always stay in the residential side. Only the R2s are moving. So just multifamily.
Okay, we're to the point of the show today where everybody who has their hand up has already spoken. So I'm just gonna ask, if you didn't mean to have your hand up now, please take it down. Otherwise, I will begin calling on people in order. I think some good points have been made already. And we do have a motion on the floor to amend this. So I will call on you in the order in which I saw your hand go up. So Lisa, you are next.
Yes, thank you. I actually have a question for Patrick, because he made a comment during his presentation of his opinion. So I'm not aware of an alternative where someone can choose to comply with the commercial code if it falls under the residential code. That was what I think I heard you say, and I just wanted to make sure I was understanding your statement, because I don't believe that is allowed.
It is allowed. R2. In fact, I was just going to bring something up, Lisa. Item number 2, multiple single-family dwellings, townhouses are not R3. They are R2. And so R2 is all encompassing from townhomes to a 50-story type 1 residential high-rise. And the black hole ones are what Dwayne and I have been discussing, is these woody walk-ups that are, whether they're accessed from the exterior or the interior, there are two. You can permit them in the energy code under the commercial code if you so choose to. And as I said to Andrea, I've got 4 on my desk right now that are being permitted under the IBC as dictated by the jurisdiction. But as David Reddy and I have said, they still are falling under the residential energy code if you so choose. And
okay.
So let me just finish. Dwayne?
Yes.
Townhomes are R2 also. So
I do not believe that's true. I don't think that's true. Those are R3.
No, they aren't. I just read through this, I just went through this with King County. R3 limits it to 2 units. They're duplexes. Townhomes are R2. You can look it up right now. Just open up the IRC. There are 2. So this may need to be modified.
Let's revisit this discussion, maybe let people look up codes and then come back to this specific question, but this is maybe not as germane to the actual discussion on the floor. But Lisa, was your question satisfactorily answered by Patrick?
No, it was not, because I would say I'm looking through the code and I'm looking for the language that a jurisdiction could point to that says that a 3-story or less multifamily building has the option of complying with commercial or residential. I don't see where that is allowed in the code.
There's no specific language. It's the fact that it's R2. It doesn't have to have the language. It's R2. R2 sits on both sides of these codes.
I don't believe that that's the way it's being enforced, but I would defer to the jurisdictions who make those decisions. But we certainly do not advise that is a clear alternative.
Well, you're not a jurisdiction and you're not applying for the building permit, and that's what I do for a living. And I've permitted R2 on both sides of the code.
I can speak as a jurisdiction that there's a definition for residential building that includes single family, 2-family, townhouses, and then those 3-story or less R2s. And then it says under scope that this applies to residential buildings. And so I think it's actually kind of irrelevant to the conversation, but I think, Patrick, that we would not in this jurisdiction accept your explanation.
I believe that, Dwayne, but it's been done elsewhere.
Okay, so we're talking about code and we're talking about practice, and sometimes they diverge a bit.
That's right.
Okay, Sean, you're next.
Yes, Sean Dennison, NBI. On the question of correlating this with other codes, this weird definition of residential building only exists in the energy code. And then where the residential energy code is brought into the IRC for chapter 11, everywhere else, they just talk about group R. And in the rare circumstances where the IBC allows occupancies to be constructed under the IRC, those are usually based on number of occupants. So, particularly you have like group home settings with 5 people or less. That can be built under IRC because those are basically like single family homes most of the time. So in terms of the correlation, I think really the only correlation that needs to be worried about is correlation over to commercial code for commercial energy code, and then correlation with chapter 11 of the IRC, which I assume happens automatically through this process. And then to Patrick's point, this is actually one of the reasons that I think it's important to lay this out explicitly. We tried to address this in the 2018 IECC, the issue of R2 and multifamily. And it was a really big deal, the fact that the code said one thing, yet developers and builders fairly consistently were able to convince the jurisdictions to do something else. They were able to convince them to let them build their R2 under whichever code was less stringent. They were able to convince jurisdictions to go away that the code didn't actually necessarily state. So I am sure that Patrick has built buildings the way that he's talking about, but that's not what the code said. If you look at the definition of townhouse in the IRC, it's pretty clear what kind of building that is, and it's not an R2. So I think that bringing clarity to these things as much as possible is really important to getting consistent building in our market. Thanks.
Townhouses are R2. They are not R3.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next, I have Kevin next.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just have to get clarity on this, on the heat pump water heater issue. I'm reading the CR 102. It says service hot water shall be provided by an electric air source heat pump.
I think we lost you, Kevin.
Oh, did you?
Well, you said.
Oh, my internet did drop out.
Okay, you started saying something and then there was a pause. So go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Technology issues. So I'm looking at the CR 102 service water heating system type, and it says service hot water shall be provided by an electric air source heat pump water heating system. And then if I go to the definition of service water heating, it says heating water for domestic or commercial purposes other than space heating and process requirements. So I don't see how any commercial building can escape the need for a heat pump water heating system for domestic use or commercial use. In other words, I don't see an exception for in-unit water heating. And that's the concern I raised initially, is that this proposal would push a number of buildings that aren't governed by the current CR 102 into that provision. And that the proposals we see before us for heat pump water heating for residential are less restrictive than those for commercial.
Okay. Patrick, you are next.
Well, after what Kevin just said, I'm considering rescinding my friendly amendment. And the reason is what I stated earlier. Putting individual heat pumps into the Woody walk-ups. And I'm with David Reddy. I got 2 on my desk, same developer. One is slab on grade, goes 4 stories, and it's under the commercial code. The other project, which happens to be in Battleground, which is out of Metro USA, is 3 stories. And it's under the other code. And we have one developer that also is an owner builder. And I'll tell you, Shell, it's been a long haul trying to get these two opposite entities through two different codes. And we had room on the Battleground project to put heat pump water heaters on the balconies. And I got two other on my desk that there is not room. And if we mandate heat pump water heaters and what Kevin just said about that it doesn't exempt individual heat pump water heaters, I'm just not sure that this is great language. So, Dwayne, I don't really want to do this, but I'm trying to have a code where we can actually build the buildings.
Well, we
So
all
I-
want to do that, Patrick. So
Well,
I guess, Patrick, I'd like to just suggest that Dwayne or somebody else, does somebody have a response to Kevin? Because there's some question now as to whether standalone hot water heaters are required to be heat pumps or not. And Kevin suggested that they are required to be heat pumps. And I guess I would like to know, I don't have time to look it up while I'm trying to run this meeting.
I'm
but-
looking it up right now, and I had originally, and the one that came from, the first one of these was did specify central, but Kevin's correct that this requires heat pump water heaters. The only exception I could think that's applicable is the one that says you could have 0.1 watts per square foot of building area in electric resistance water heaters, but I'm not sure how much that would give you.
Not very much.
Okay, so thanks for answering that question. Patrick, I'll give you the floor back. Go ahead.
I think in the best interest of trying to build buildings, Shell, I should rescind my friendly amendment and let this thing stand on its own.
Okay.
It's not about saving energy or not, or it's about, gosh, we got to be able to build these buildings.
And that, I totally agree. And that's kind of one of the big reasons why the tag is convened, is to make sure we can meet the legislative targets and build all the buildings that we need to reasonably cost effectively. So Patrick's motion, just remind me, was to strike 4 from the exceptions list or from the definitions list?
It was to include the exterior access woody walk-ups.
Yep. So,
And
Krista,
Dwayne
from a process standpoint, do we need the person who did the second to also agree to rescind the motion?
Yes, we need the concurrence of the second.
Who did this?
Is that me who, I think this is Greg. I think I might have seconded this. Was that accurate?
I think I did. This is David Reddy. And I mean, I still think this change should be made, regardless of this heat pump water heater provision. I agree with Kevin after looking at I originally thought it was only applicable to central like Dwayne did, but rereading it, it would apply. I think there's an exception for installing a NIA heat pump water heating, what's the language, which does cover NIA's advanced water heating. I guess it's commercial electric advanced water heating spec. Anyways, I think that I still think this change should be here because of the fact that you have 4-story woody walk-ups, and again, you have a different code, and I think this resolves a lot of.
Yeah. David, I agree with you, but I got a question for you. So say this goes through, you envision where, a 24-unit woody walk-up to where we would have a central heat pump water heating system like on a 5/2, and we would plumb this through the whole building as opposed to individual water heaters?
Yeah, I mean, I've assisted scoping that approach. I think there's technology to support doing that. The other solution would be, so the alternative you're saying is that if you, with a 3-story woody walk-up or 4, that you could do electric water heaters. Is that what you think is the appropriate solution for that building type?
Well, that's the common denominator, but right now, under the 18 code, to get 4.5 credits in R406 and not use a heat pump water heater, typically you have to dive into the air infiltration portion, and to get any amount of credits there,
Yeah.
then it triggers HRVs, which are $5,000 to $7,000 per unit. So they kind of run and hide from that, and it's quite challenging under this current code. And that's why I'm bringing all these things up, Shell, is, yeah, I'm all about moving forward on our 7 to 11%, but it circles back to being able to build a building.
I think there's not, we shouldn't do anything that doesn't allow us to build a building. So
Yeah, I think they can be built. I think if a 4-story Woody walk-up can be built, a 3-story will be.
Well,
So-
the 4-story ones I have going on all have elevators and double loaded corridors.
What does an elevator have anything to do with water heat?
They do not have individual water heaters.
Okay.
The
I
4-story.
want to hear from everybody. Patrick, is that?
Yeah.
Are you
good?
Finished? Okay. So Henry was the next person on the list, and then Lisa and Sean again.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just going to make a quick plug that we have absolutely designed Woody walk-up 3-story, 2-story with heat pump water heating. The most promising up-and-coming brand, mainly CO2 systems. You can put them on the roof. You can build a doghouse. You can put a small insulated room with a storage tank and hangings on the outside and just pipe it as any other central system. And so I don't think that's an unbuildable system at all that Patrick seems to be continually referring to. And he still hasn't said what he thinks the baseline water system should be for a low-rise multifamily unit. And if it is gas or electric, then this proposal here is actually advancing energy savings in the code. So as it is, would actually be much better than what he's trying to roll back. Thank you.
And just from a process standpoint, Patrick wants to rescind his motion, but the person who seconded it, I believe, didn't want to rescind the motion. So when we vote, we will vote on Patrick's original motion. And actually, Robert's rules would suggest, we don't have to follow them, but Robert's rules suggest you can't speak against your own motion as well. So just putting that out there. So Henry, are you done?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Lisa, and then David.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually have a process question. So this conversation regarding heat pump water heaters and how that new requirement in the commercial energy code, how it would now impact this proposal. The challenge with that, if I'm understanding it correctly, is it was a bit of a moving target, right? Where the original proposal was clear that it applied to just central systems. I don't know if that's what the language was when the proponent wrote this, but I suspect that that was the case. And then, and since then, that language in the commercial code has been refined. So now it no longer is limited to just central systems, which I think is pertinent to this entire conversation. And so this is one of those cases where it's kind of a cart before the horse kind of thing. And so I'm wondering like how we're supposed to handle that when the original proposal was written based on language that has now since changed in the commercial code. That all makes sense.
Well, the commercial code has been moved into a CR 103 process by the council. So the language that was in what the council voted on is going to be the commercial code in 2023, the 2021 code, and they'll be enforced in July of 2023. I guess from a procedural question, what you might be asking is, should we table this and make sure we have all the information before we vote on it? Is that what you're saying, Lisa?
Well, I'm not sure if that's what that wasn't what I thought originally. However, what I'm wondering is now, because we've got two different codes and they're all both being developed at different times, right? That these kinds of overlaps or clashes can happen. And would it make sense to say, okay, we're generally in support of this particular proposal, but because perhaps there's a concern about requiring heat pump water heaters for individual dwelling units, and I understand it's already been voted in, can a change be proposed back to the commercial code for multifamily or something? And I know I'm muddying things, but perhaps you understand where I'm going with this, that if we want to get this proposal through, do you see what I'm saying?
I think, Lisa, that would be an email that you would send to the code council, to Stoyana and Krista, and suggest that, I don't know, suggest whatever you're suggesting. The tag, I guess, could send a recommendation to the council to do something.
Okay.
But I guess if you have a concern or if you have some other question, I think sending an email to Krista and Stoyan is probably the right approach.
Okay. Yeah. And
if you have questions about what we're voting on today,
yeah,
and then what you might want to do is suggest that we table the motion until we have an answer on something. If you have a question that cannot be answered today, or you could, or we could vote on it today, and then if we needed to revisit it later, if the answer is substantially different than what we think it is today. So those are some options that I'll just put out there, and I think those would be fine.
Sure. I think that again, because it would be germane to the vote today, that there has been some concern expressed by various tag members about what it would mean if this was moved over to commercial and heat pump water heaters were then required for individual dwelling units, how they would vote versus if they're not. And so I guess maybe I'm going to put this back to the proponent and ask, what would be your preference in this case based on the information we have now?
Which proponent?
Proponents.
The proponent is Dwayne Johnlin.
Okay.
Dwayne?
It's a complicated question. Could you restate exactly what you want to do?
Well, I don't know if I want to do anything, but what I'm hearing from the discussion is that there is support for the proposal. However, it was also brought to the attention of the committee that the original language for heat pump water heaters did not require heat pump water. It was only for central systems. And now that language has since been removed. And so this proposal, your proposal, has a different impact because of that change. And so the question is, that's where we sit today. And
okay, I'm getting, and by the way, Krista, that's not the right section there. It's the next one down. But I think that going back into the commercial code and opening that up again is going to be just horrendously difficult considering our timeline, and not advisable. So I would say if you want to make some kind of change, it would be a modification to this. And then we'd say, well, it complies with the commercial code, except for this one thing.
I think that was my question. And so that would be the question to the committee, is that if some language is inserted in here regarding the heat pump water heater requirement, that it only applies to these low-rise residential multifamily that have central systems, would the proposal be more palatable to the rest of the committee members? So that's,
well, let's first see how it does just the way it is now. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have lots of ideas on the table. I'm going to go through this. I think we should wrap this up, and by wrap it up, I mean table it or make a motion. Table it if we think there's homework to do, or, vote on it if we think we have the information we need. So David Reddy, you are, or David Balon rather, you are.
Yeah. So I would just like to remind everyone that this is not a heat pump water heater proposal for anybody. It's not relevant to the point at hand. I think that it's time to vote on Patrick's amendment. It's not a friendly amendment, but it is an amendment, and it is seconded, and we need to deal with it. If you think that heat pump water heaters are the deal breaker, vote against it or vote for it. If you don't, or vote against it. If you don't think that, vote for it. But let's just have that vote. I call the question.
Okay, so call the question requires a 2/3 majority and no further discussion can happen. According to Robert's rules, we're not beholden to them, but I will respect that call to question. So let's do a roll call vote on this call to question. So just to restate the motion, the motion on the floor is the call to question. So you're voting for whether we want to vote on what you see in front of us. We're not voting on what you see in front of us. We're voting on whether we want to immediately end debate and vote on that. So Krista.
Just to clarify, Shell, we'd be voting on the amendment, not the measure.
That's right.
We're voting on whether we want to immediately stop debate and vote on the amendment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, just an also question that the amendment was, well, Patrick made it, but has pulled it. The second didn't, but shouldn't, I don't know, I'm just assuming if there's only one motion to move it forward right now, that's the second. Shouldn't there be another second to make it a vote possible? That's a question for process.
No, that's not.
I don't have a definitive answer on that. My understanding from a quick internet search is that the person who did the second needs to also agree to rescind the motion, and that didn't happen. So therefore, the motion on the table prior to the motion to call the question is what we would be voting on if the call to question is successful. Does that make sense?
Can I make a compromise here maybe that I would withdraw the second if we could table this whole proposal for further work? Because I do acknowledge that there are some issues that would need to be resolved, including just some fundamental definition things that Mike Kennedy noted, that we could at least scope those a little bit better before this is just thrown out.
You would agree to withdraw your second, which would rescind the original motion.
But there's a motion on the floor to the question that cancels further discussion, and you have to basically get the vote. Otherwise, we're going to be here for the rest of the day.
Yep. Okay. Krista, let's take a roll call on this call to question.
Real quick though, I'd like to dispute what David said. Dwayne accepted this as a friendly amendment.
Yes.
But he didn't second it. That was David Reddy, according to what I heard.
Calling the question is what we're talking about now.
Yeah. So this is a vote on whether we vote on this. This is not a vote on this. This is a vote on whether we immediately end debate and vote on this. So let's do that without further ado. So Krista.
Mike Fowler.
I ask to please restate with clarity what we are voting on right now.
What we are voting on now is that we immediately end debate and then vote on the amendment to this proposal.
Thank you. Yes.
Mark Sniffen.
You bet.
Wade Craig.
Yes.
Dwayne Johnlin.
Yes.
Dave Balon.
Yes.
David Reddy.
Yes.
Gary Hickinen.
Oh, Gary stepped away, so it'll be Kevin.
Kevin.
Yes.
Andrea Smith.
Yes.
Irina Rasputnis.
Yes.
Amy Willis.
Yes.
Greg Davenport.
Yes.
Henry Odom.
Yes.
Gavin Tenold,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes,
Abstain.
Luke Howard,
Yes.
Jason Carter.
Yes.
So it passes with one abstention.
Okay, so that means we were gonna immediately vote on not the proposal, but the amendment to the proposal, which is the strikeout of number 4 in red, as you see on the screen. So that means we are gonna vote on that, and that is going to be a roll call vote right now.
Mike Fowler,
No.
Mark Sniffen,
No.
Wade Craig,
No.
Dwayne Johnlin,
Yes.
Dave Balon,
No.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Kevin Dwell,
Abstain.
Andrea Smith,
No.
Irina Rasputnis,
Irina?
I didn't hear you, Irina.
Chris Burrows,
Sorry, I was having a hard time getting off mute. And can you just, we're voting on the amendment, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think I'll abstain.
Amy Willis,
No.
Greg Davenport,
No.
Henry Odom,
Yes.
Gavin Tenold,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
Yes.
Jason Carter.
No.
So motion fails 6-8 with 2 abstentions.
Okay, so that means we are back to the original proposal. And I think there are 2 ways forward. I think, Chris, if you want to unstrike out that. Yeah, there you go. I think there's two ways forward. One would be to move this forward and say this is a good idea. Another one would be to establish a bit of a homework for the proponent and others that are interested to clarify certain things, questions that have been asked today. So I think those are both options moving forward. We have a motion and a second to do this. However, I will entertain some further discussion. So go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, there is a motion on the table?
Wasn't there a motion to? Oh, yes, there isn't.
There's a motion.
Was there a motion to move this forward?
I don't recall that.
I don't think so.
Yep. Okay. So there's no motion on the table.
So I make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there? The second was Andrea. Is there further discussion on this? And I guess there have been a few questions. Are there specific questions, Kevin, that you would like answered? Just to give clarity to the proponent and anybody else.
I mean, there have been a number of questions raised, but also I do have an additional question, which is, if this is put into play, then these groups will be moved to the commercial code. I think that means, would there have to be a change to the credits table, or My concern is that right now a residential building can get credit for a heat pump water heater, and that if it's required, those credits would fall away. How does that affect other aspects of the code if this definition is taken up?
And you're asking if these buildings move to the commercial code, would the commercial code need to change?
I just don't know what the impact is there on the credits.
Kevin, we looked hard at this when developing this proposal, and there are credits on each side of the ledger that you have to comply with, and it was not at all clear whether this would fundamentally change the way that things got built, but you have some credits available under the commercial that are not available in residential, and vice versa.
That makes sense.
Okay, we have Greg Davenport.
I just wanted to say that if the motion to table this doesn't go through, I'd be prepared to put forward a motion to take a vote on accepting the proposal as is.
Okay, thanks, Greg. David Balon.
Yeah, the option table in the residential code, which is the only thing I'm concerned about right now, would not need to change. We still will have R2 buildings in the residential code, and they will still have whatever options are available to them as they're specified in the option table. And other than that, I agree with Greg.
Okay, the motion on the floor right now is to table this and answer a few more questions. So I don't see any more hands up right now. Oh, Mark, go ahead.
It seems to me like what we're doing here is we have a definition of residential building for this particular code, and I kind of think we need maybe a definition further of the R2 for this code. We're only making it this residential building specific for this code. And it kind of seems like we should have some kind of definition contained in both the residential and IBC, that we wouldn't have to make up our own residential building definition. And does this live in the defined terms? Because it is italicized, so I'm assuming we have this under our definitions in both the residential and commercial energy code.
Right.
That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, well, let's take a roll call vote on the motion, which was to table this. So if you vote yes, you're voting to table this to the next meeting.
Mike Fowler,
No.
Mark Sniffen,
Yes.
Wade Craig,
No.
Dwayne Johnlin,
No.
Dave Balon,
No.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Kevin Duell,
Yes.
Andrea Smith,
Yes.
Irina Rasputnis,
No.
Amy Wheelis,
Yes.
Greg Davenport,
No.
Henry Odom.
A quick procedural question. If we table it, could we reintroduce Patrick's amendment next time we discuss this?
We can do whatever we want. If we table it, we have all options available to us next time we consider it.
Yes.
Gavin Tenold,
No.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
Yes.
Jason Carter,
Yes.
motion carries 9-7.
Okay, well, we have spent 2 hours together and we have now tabled one motion. Awesome. Okay, but we got some good discussion, which is the point of the tags. We don't need to vote on everything early. I think that was a good discussion, and I guess what we did in the commercial code last time was ask the proponent if they wanted to get together a group to revise the proposal in any way, and if so, then Dwayne, do you want to revise do you feel like you need to revise the proposal or come up with any more additional information on it in any way?
Well, I'd like given that I have a really busy schedule of meetings all next week. What I'd like to do is to get people to maybe anyone who wants to participate in an email round robin could come up with proposed amendments in particular, and then next meeting we could formally go through a list of amendments to this. Does that sound like a reasonable way to move forward?
That sounds great. So everybody lower your hands and then speak up if you want to be on that email discussion. Just unmute yourself and say your name.
Patrick Hayes.
Okay, it looks like Lisa also. Anybody else want to be on the email chain to discuss?
Yeah.
Okay, I see Mark Kniffen.
Yeah, Mark.
David Reddy. Kevin, you as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, and Luke, are you also suggesting that you want to be part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
How about Andrea? Yeah, there's a hand.
Andrea just raised her hand. David Balon did. We have to make sure we're not half the tag, but David Balon and Andrea. Okay, so as long as that's not a quorum of the tag, have the email discussion and hopefully come to some sort of a consensus before we get to the next meeting so that we're not considering 43 different proposed amendments or wordsmithing too much. Cool.
And may I add Gary Higginen to that list as well?
Sure.
And could you all right now just send me a one-word email that said you're on this, and then that'll become we'll make a group email list out of that.
And this is skirting very close to a quorum, so if there's one more person, it will tip it over.
Does that include alternates or just
No.
principal? Okay.
So don't add anybody to the list. Okay, cool. Well, we had a good, robust discussion on that, and I think that was really important, and that's why we considering that one first. So now we are ended. Now we're on 82, air leakage. Actually, Lisa, you're still here for how longer? How much longer?
I could stick around till about 11.
Okay, why don't we hit 71 then? Because that's yours.
82 is mine as well, air leakage. That might be another long discussion.
Okay, let's do the quicker ones. And right now I have 71, 72, 89, 88, and 81.
Okay.
So let's do the one on the screen right now.
All right.
This is 71.
71. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the purpose of this particular proposal, and all of the proposals that I submitted are related to multifamily. And so what this one does is in Group R2 buildings that have central service water heating, this proposal aligns the requirements for the circulation system pump so that the same requirement is in both the residential and the commercial code for Group R2 buildings with central service water heating systems. And what it requires is that the pump itself, let's see, that it does require that the pump have an electronic leak commuted motor. I can't get that word out, an ECM motor. So it does require that. And then it also strikes the language about allowing the cold water piping to be used as the return. That is definitely an energy saving measure that is not used very often. Typically, you only see that in like single family and not in buildings that have a central service water heating system. And so we are proposing to say that it has to be a dedicated return pipe versus allowing the cold water pipe to be used as the return. So that's the gist.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments or questions for Lisa on this one? I see Henry, you have the floor.
Yeah, and in large multifamily buildings, it's been shown that demand controls on circulation pumps for recirc systems actually doesn't save any energy because there's always enough of a demand for hot water within the building that you rarely ever gets to turn off the pump. And so it actually just adds cost and controls to a otherwise simple system. Is this taking that into account? I see that it's already in the base code language in 403.511 to have some sort of controls, but your addition here adds more specifics for Group R2. Do you think that with smaller low-rise buildings that there's energy savings?
So are you in reference to allowing demand recirculation? Actually, maybe I'll have to ask that question again. So well, actually, I will address one point that I didn't cover in my explanation. What I'm also doing in this proposal is I'm clarifying that demand recirculation is a form of circulation system. So it is a little bit of a rearrange in the code so that both the requirement for the Group R2 buildings and the demand recirculation water systems, that it is all, it's a subsection under circulation systems. It does allow demand recirculation systems serving individual dwelling units. We're not changing that requirement at all. So I'm not sure, is your concern that it still allows it, or I'm not sure.
Is your energy saving measure here just an ECM motor for balancing, or are you adding specifics for R2 to have demand controls?
No, I'm not requiring, because if you look at section C403.5.112, it just says demand recirculation water system serving individual dwelling units. So that language isn't changing. The only change to this measure, which is the energy savings element of it, is that it's requiring ECM motors on those recirculation pumps, which would be consistent now with the commercial code.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good questions, good answers. Sean.
I guess a point of clarification, aren't systems that serve multiple dwelling units already referred to the commercial code in R 403.8? Am I misunderstanding something? So it says systems serving multiple dwelling units shall comply with sections C403 and C404 of commercial code in lieu of R403.
I think you're correct.
So is this necessary?
I think Sean's correct.
Okay, that's a good point. I would accept that as a friendly amendment to, yeah, see that, what's hard about that, it's kind of buried. It's further down in the code. Perhaps as a friendly amendment would be to include a pointer here to that section, or to remove that whole new section there, either one, because the whole point is that we're trying to align the two codes for those central surface water heating systems. However, the other detail in this particular proposal that we wouldn't want to see go away is this new requirement for all of these systems that have circulation systems, that they no longer allowed to use a cold water supply pipe as a return. So I would accept as a friendly amendment if you think it's redundant to either strike that section there or just include a pointer to it and just say, you know, shall comply with section something. Whatever the appropriate section would be.
Let's see, just trying to think on the fly here.
Yeah, because it's the part about this that's a little unclear is that there just isn't any language in this section specific to central service water heating systems. And so we thought it was beneficial to include that, but I'd accept as a friendly amendment if the committee feels that it's redundant.
To strike this or to come up with other language that is.
It's not only redundant, it's conflicting.
In what way?
In that this says do this, and then something else in the code says, no, go over and comply with the other code.
I see. Okay, then I'd accept as a friendly amendment to strike that paragraph there, but keep the rest of the proposal.
Does anything in the second bit conflict with the later requirement to use the commercial code?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's just additional language.
Yeah, because the rest of the proposal now applies to all circulation systems, not just those that are related to a central system.
Okay, thanks. David Reddy, I think you had your hand up, but.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, David Bailon.
Well, I think maybe the way that 403.8 is written, it's stated as in lieu of for R403, the R403.5 that we have now. I'm not quite sure what we're trying to do here. It does seem like we can do either one under the provisions of the Energy Code. And while I think this is a good proposal, I want to be sure that we could in fact build a circulation system using this in those buildings that are otherwise permitted under the Residential Energy Code.
Yeah.
I don't quite see. I think maybe by striking this, we actually preserve that option, but I'm not quite clear about it.
David, you bring up a good point. And actually, the language of in lieu of, that actually is problematic because that would mean that they're not being mandated, you know, the ACM motor is not mandated, where retaining that language that I have in here mandates it. So the alternative would be to say that it's not an in lieu of, but that, you know, thou shalt do it. So you're right. By striking this section, we've now removed that and that ECM motor requirement that the proposal originally included. You could build a building without it.
Well, yeah, but you would be building it under the commercial code. If you strike this paragraph, every recirculation system that is permitted under the residential code would have to meet these requirements, which is, I think, the idea.
Yes.
The question is whether we strike the in lieu of stuff in R403.8, because that's I don't know what to do with that section. And furthermore, especially after we remove most of the R2 occupancies into the commercial sector, if we ever do that, it's increasingly irrelevant what 403.8 is. So I think I would like to make an amendment to this proposal that is tacked on at the end that says R403.8 would be removed from the code, removed from the residential code.
I'd accept that as a friendly amendment to strike this section here and instead add that language that you just proposed.
Yes.
So you'd be modifying R403.8 to.
You'd be striking it. It's not just modified. God.
Which sounds like it is actually kind of in line with the intent of this proposal.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so okay, and Dave, that was a
friendly amendment.
Made a suggestion. I don't know if was it a motion?
It's a friendly amendment.
Friendly
It was a motion, but she accepted it as a friendly amendment, so it's just a friendly amendment.
Yeah. Right now we're kind of in the discussion where we're trying to get the best language we can, and then we can make motions when we kind of get the good language that we're hoping for. Okay. Thanks, Dave. Dwayne.
So what's happening in the main paragraph up above that we're striking out, what happened? We're striking out the thing that allowed the cold water supply to be the return for circulation, which is perhaps the stupidest thing that's ever been allowed in code. And yet at the bottom, there's an exception that says, okay, if you let it cool down to 104, then you can circulate the cold waters through there. But then that would mean that you could never circulate water unless it had cooled down to 104, in which case you wouldn't have hot water. So I think this would be terrific, but that exception is awful, and I don't understand why it's there.
Well, so I'll explain why we went there. And also, we also submitted this proposal at the ICC level as well, and in the commercial code. I took the language out of the charging statement, R403511. That's where it talks about that temperature issue. And I put it under just demand recirculation system. So that exception doesn't apply to the standard circulation system. It applies to demand.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that would only be allowed in, and so perhaps that the exception needs to be indented so it's clear that it only applies to demand recirculation water systems. We were advised to hold on to that exception, but I would accept again as a friendly amendment if everybody's against it, that we could take that out too.
Whose idea was that?
I'm trying to remember.
It's been in the code since time immemorial. Some people, just to save on piping costs, wanted to run the hot water back down the cold water pipe, which means that then you wouldn't get cold water when you wanted it either, because it would be filled with lukewarm water. It's the stupidest thing ever, but it does save one pipe run. So it's been in the code since the code began.
And this is for individual dwelling units, right? So this was, I believe it was a cost comment that, you know, if they're using going demand, I'm not a fan of demand recirculation either. But the point was that if you go demand recirculation, then we'll let you to continue to do this. However, I would accept as a friendly amendment for that as well, to strike the exception.
I make such a motion to strike that, and I'm friendly.
You don't really need to make a motion. You can just make a suggestion and then people.
I would suggest.
Okay. So then I guess what is this proposal about? What is, so in this proposal, basically the salient points that remain are eliminating the idea of having a cold water pipe, right? Is that kind of like
Goes without saying.
a good summary of what remains?
That and also it's just making it very clear by striking R 403.8. It's making it very clear that you have to now comply with the same requirements for ECM motors and all that that's in the commercial code.
Hey, Lisa, maybe I would be less worried about that remaining thing there that says demand recirculation water systems serving individual dwelling units. If it said serving an individual dwelling unit.
Ah.
But you know, the titles are not enforceable, right? So
yeah, but people read them anyway.
Yeah, and that's fine too.
okay, so we have some decent modifications on here that generally I haven't heard anybody speak against, but I want to hear from everybody. David, ready? You are next on my list.
Yeah, I guess the striking of R 403.8, I don't quite understand the rationale there that central system serving these units shouldn't be kind of pushed to the commercial code. It seems they're much better, much more attuned to a central system. Can you?
Yes.
So I take issue with that amendment, but everything else is great.
Okay.
Well, actually, okay, so when you look at that language now, it says central, a system serving multiple dwelling units, system serving the shall comply. In lieu, I think the issue is the in lieu of, right? And so if we struck what I have above, you know, for where it says group R2 buildings with central service water heating, keep that struck, keep R 403.8, but just simply remove the in lieu of portion.
Yeah, that would be.
I don't understand why it's really it says shall comply with 403, so it doesn't give a choice. And I like that in lieu of R 403, because then you understand, I don't know, what you're doing instead.
Does that leave an option?
No, it shall comply with C403.
Okay.
I don't see an option in there. What I see is if you meet the criteria of serving multiple dwelling units, yeah, then you just ignore 403, all of it, and you do C403 and C404. I mean, that seems abundantly clear to me.
Okay, then what I see on the screen, I accept as friendly amendments.
Okay,
and I
so
think it
that's
accomplishes everything we're all looking for.
And that's no change to 403.8, correct?
Yep. Yeah, leaves that as.
Okay. Let's hear from everybody else. So we have Sean.
I was going to say something about R 403.8 being very important, so I'm glad to see that. But just if it sounds like you're still trying to do something for central systems, and if that's the case, you could just put a requirement under R 403.8. If there's something that you want that the commercial code doesn't do, you could just layer it under there. And I think then it would work if there's, you know, if it's the electric commutated motors or something like that, just making it an additional requirement in addition to meeting the commercial requirements. Thanks.
I think that just pointing to the commercial code, now that the commercial code now requires ECM motors, takes care of that.
Okay. We have Sean next, or no, that was Sean. We have Larry had your hand up, but it's now down. Wade.
Yeah, some of the on-demand systems have integral built-in circulation systems that aren't necessarily ECM. If those are serving individual dwelling units, does that preclude them from being used?
It does. And I'll one other statement too, because this came up at the IACC level. My understanding, John Bade brought this up, that in the future, in the near future, ECM motors are going to be required. So it wouldn't be under this, the first part of this code, but it would be in later into the code. That's new information. So the concern you're bringing up now is it would only be pertinent for the first half of this code cycle. And then at the national level, ECM motors will be required. So we're just requiring ECM motors a little sooner.
But those aren't that's a product that's not currently available in a lot of these situations.
No, there are quite a few available products out there, circulation pumps that are available with ECM on them.
But those would be an add-on to a system as opposed to the integral pump.
No.
No. No, our understanding is that there are multiple products available, that it's an integral component of the pump and its controls. It's not an add-on, it's an integral component to it.
Oh, okay, I know there's a number that aren't, so
Okay.
we're kind of precluding them from being used.
Yes, that would be the case. And as I mentioned, that is going to be the case in the future at the national level. And I'm happy to, yeah, I'm happy to forward that information. As I said, it just rolled in last week from the IACC, because the IACC they're having the same discussion.
Hey, Dave Bailon, you have your hand up, and
ECMs have been on the market for a long time. It's a really good plan. I think there is actually a separate term that refers to them as a class as opposed to the ECM trademark that came with the original General Electric invention back in the 80s. But the fact is, this is way overdue. They're twice or three times as efficient as the alternative pumps, and they give much more flexibility in speed and circulation. So this is really, it's an important addition. I do think that I still think we should strike 4038, because what this proposal does is make a particular and somewhat limited discussion of circulating systems for the residential scale systems. Even if we pass everything, but unless we move R2 out of here altogether, it would apply to that, and I think it's a good thing to apply to that. I don't think referring these relatively small residential buildings to the commercial code is, if you read through that, you'll see that it's got a number of mostly peripheral requirements, and this is a straightforward way to use our code to apply to the more simple systems in the smaller buildings.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Greg.
I just wanted to echo what Dave was saying. We've seen the same evolution in fan motors over the last 10 years. Moving to ECM motors is a real good move for energy efficiency.
Okay, thanks, Greg. We're getting near probably a motion to move this forward at some point. Larry.
I would just like to make sure that energy that we're saving here is noted, that we're reducing the CO2 footprint, and that energy is actually calculated. So we're keeping track of all these savings that are going along. Okay, even though it's a very small amount of energy, we need to keep track of all these savings that are going along, so we can post them against what the total goal is. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, I'm generally seeing consensus or near consensus on this, so Oh, Jason.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something in here that doesn't get addressed a lot when it comes to the energy savings, but also just the long-term effects. We do a lot of service calls on systems that have timers and they're not properly installed. And so equipment, if these systems are not set up correctly, equipment gets damaged and then gets thrown out and the life cycle significantly reduced. So I think that's something that definitely needs to be factored in, not just the energy efficiency of the system itself, which is very important, but also looking at life cycle costs. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I think we're ready to do one of a couple of things. One is a motion to move this forward with the additions. Another one is suggesting that we need more work on it. But I will happily entertain a motion to do something. With
Shall, this is Greg. I motion to vote for this amendment.
Second, Wayne.
Okay, we have a motion that I understand to move it forward as modified today on the screen in front of us. We have a second from Dwayne. Any further discussion? And Larry and Greg, your hands are still up. But since you've recently spoken, I'm not necessarily going on it. Okay, let's take a voice vote on this. Let's risk a voice vote. All in favor of this moving forward, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so motion passes unanimously as far as I heard. So we are on to, I think Lisa probably doesn't have time for another one today. So I think let's go back to the original order and hit the air leakage, R4 2.4.
Well, that one is mine as well, and that's kind of a bigger one. I will say that
Oh, okay.
72, we could probably clear 72. I submitted 2 proposals because 71 is the one that had an energy savings element to it and included the ECM motor and all that. 72, it was a basically if 71 didn't pass, 72 captures at minimum the return pipe element of it.
Okay,
So
Can you just withdraw it, Lisa?
and so therefore I'm happy to withdraw this proposal.
Okay. 72 is withdrawn. Thank you, Lisa. I guess, Lisa, I don't think we have time for any more proposals.
That's right.
today.
Yep, I have to duck off.
Yep. Okay, the meeting is scheduled for noon. That is an hour and 10 minutes from now, hour and 7 minutes from now. We have been in this room, virtual room, for a while, so I would like to take a 3-minute break. So let's be back in 3 minutes at 10:56. See you all then and there. All right, we are back in session. Short breaks are good. I think the next one, since Lisa's left the room, would be the heat pump space heater proposal. And just
So did you want to skip over 33 then?
30. Oh, yeah. Sorry, let's consider 33. I had misguessed at Lisa's proposals. Okay, and the proponent on this one is Mike Lubliner, who is somebody from WSU Energy here
Yeah.
to speak for this one.
Jonathan, I would assume would take this one.
Okay, Jonathan, are you about?
Jonathan is not here. My name's Megan Kramer, but I'm very new. I was really only here for the listening purposes, and I'm not officially on the tag. Mike and Jonathan are both unavailable though today.
Okay, then we'll move this to the next one because we want to make sure the proponents in the room when we consider these as both a courtesy, but also to make sure we have the the whole story on the proposal and can answer questions about it. So that means we're to 065, I think. And so just to clarify, so this is a Sean Denniston proposal, and Sean Denniston proposed this heat pump, space heating one, a heat pump water heating one, and also one that just requires all buildings to be all electric. And I guess my inclination in putting the agenda together was to consider the space heating one, then the water heating one, and if both of those are felt to be awesome, then we could consider the all electric one. But if we
And
consider
Sean just dropped off as well.
okay, well, there we are.
Sorry about that.
We will not consider this one today. Then I think is 67 the Kevin Duell proposal. Yeah, I think so. So Kevin, are you around? And
Yes, I am.
okay, do you have the floor to say what needs to be said about this one?
Thanks, Chair. So if you're reading this, you're probably wondering, what is this for, right? It's an exception to current language, and the exception is for items that are already allowed technically by code. However, they're not spelled out in the reference standards, and they're not spelled out really as an option. And there's other reasons for making this an exception, namely for preemption issues. But anyway, the bulk of this proposal is, like it says, an exception to allow gas heat pump water heating and also combi water heating. Wait a minute, this is the space of the water heating one, I forget. There's two of these that are very similar.
This is the heat pump water heaters.
Okay, great, thank you.
But
I
it
can see that.
says space and water heating systems.
Well, that's the other thing. In exception 2, there are these systems that can do both. The heat generator is used for both space and water heating. And that was another reason to bring this forward, just to spell out these options for builders and to put some stipulations on them. As you'll notice in exception 2, the heat source is effectively a condensing water heater. Now, I would entertain, since I've had some feedback back on this since it was submitted, I would entertain a different efficiency rating for option 2. But there you go. That's the point of this proposal.
Thanks, Kevin.
Sorry, one more thing. But the key point, actually, that having a high energy efficiency system for water heating that is gas fired is integral to reducing demand on the gas system. And that is essential to the decarbonization of the gas system.
Thanks, Kevin. I guess my initial question, just on reading this, is you're saying that this doesn't have a positive or negative impact on the energy performance of buildings. Was that something you said?
No, just that these would be optional measures. They would have a very positive effect on the energy consumption of buildings, because a positive effect on the reduction of energy use in buildings, because it increases the efficiency requirement over federal standards.
Okay. I guess preemption always pops into my mind when someone says over the federal standards.
Correct. And that's why these are exceptions, because you don't have to do them. And that skirts the preemption issue. That there's always a pathway through the code that you can meet federal requirements with. Or excuse me, that you can use federally regulated items to achieve the compliance, but this would be an exception that skirts that issue.
Okay, and you're in what you said initially is that these systems are already allowed by the 2018 code. This just clarifies it.
Yes, it clarifies it. It adds reference standards. And by making these exceptions, there's a way to bypass preemption issues.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Henry.
Yeah, my question is more along the lines of why this is an exception. If you're beating federal preemption, isn't that fine? Are these not rated along the lines of other federal equipment? Is that why? Is there not like a baseline that's clear? I'm just curious, yeah, why this has to be an explicit exception if it just beats it anyway.
That's a good question, Henry. And with the gas-fired heat pumps, they're not explicitly spelled out in the federal code. And that's why I wanted to get these standards in there. The gas-fired water heater is federally regulated, but combi systems in particular aren't, again, specifically addressed. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear.
And so that's just if someone goes through that list of service water heating, they just won't see a combi system, so they won't know if there's complies, basically, or just
yes,
making it clear that there's another option.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I guess, Kevin, I just have one more question, which is the exception to the entire RO4 3.5, which requires compliance with 403.5.1 through 403.5.5, or is the exception only to the second sentence of RO4 3.5, which is about the DOE 10 CFR Part 430?
That is a great question, Jill. Technically, it would be only the second sentence. However, if there were provisions put into R403 5.1 through 5 that would prohibit the use of these items, then I'm not sure how to make that language explicit, but I would want nonetheless for these two system types to be allowed, if that makes sense.
So I guess as written right now, if you meet either of the two exceptions, you would not have to comply with anything from 403.5.1 through R403.5.5, and that is the intent of the proposal.
Well, no, sorry. The intent is more subtle. So I don't want to avoid compliance with those sections unless they would prohibit these systems. They don't currently do that, but so okay, I'm talking about a future possibility, so never mind. This applies to the second sentence as the code stands.
Okay, Krista, what's the best way from a code language standpoint to suggest that these exceptions only apply to the second sentence? Because I think it's not clear to me now that they only apply to the second sentence.
Could the exception be, instead of exceptions, just say exception to DOE 10 CFR, et cetera?
I would say either add the 10 CFR language into the exception language, or flip-flop the two sentences and put the second sentence first, then the exceptions, and then the second sentence, but that's just awkward.
Right.
What if we actually said, service water heat equipment shall meet the requirements of, and then we list this one, that one, and that one, and have it an or statement? I don't know, maybe this is too much. It's just not clear to me what you think, what you said the intent is, Kevin, and what is written on the screen is not coordinated, and so I'm struggling to figure out how to say that correctly. Why don't we hear from some other people while we think about that? Does that sound good?
Well, may I add, should this be tabled for reconstruction?
Unless anybody, what I'm going to do is entertain comments, And then if anybody has any moments of brilliance where they're able to reconfigure this quickly to say what we think we want to say, then we could do that today. Larry.
Oh, sorry. Kevin, I just like to know the brand and the model number of these gas-fired heat pumps. I'm not familiar with them. So I'd like to see what they are. So
Sure.
that I think it's a great discussion to go on next meeting, but it'd be nice to have some brands and model numbers of what we're looking at here. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Should I respond to that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know that I have model numbers in my mind, but Yanmar, Aishin, and Tikogen Ilios are some models, or brands rather. Actually, also Robur, the Robur Gap A, I believe is the model number.
Okay, and Kevin, you could bring, right, yeah. Okay, Dave Balon.
Look, I understand his concern about the federal standard. We have had a method for dealing with that in our code for now about 12 years. And it is in the option table. If you look at the option table as it applies to gas water heating, you could in fact modify that with about with a phrase and cover the problem that you think you're solving with the exceptions. I don't actually think you are solving with the exceptions, but go look at the option table. If that right now it requires that the UEF be 0.91, or which doesn't seem like a deal breaker at all. So it seems to me that in the event that we actually don't outlaw gas water heating altogether, that it could be in the option table, and you would also in that process get an option point. This one you don't get an option point; you can just do it. That I don't see why. I don't understand what it's doing here. I think it's basically a fundamental misunderstanding of how this code works. I would like, if you could send out a blast email that refers us to manufacturers of this product, that would be helpful to me too. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate it.
Kevin cannot do that. Kevin can send an email to Krista.
Yes.
Krista can then, at her discretion, send that out, or perhaps we could give Kevin a couple minutes at the next meeting to share that information with you.
If you could just send us some links that we could look at some of the product information, that would be good.
Happy to do that.
Sounds good.
And was there a question in David's statement that I should respond to?
The question is, why don't, if I were going to make a friendly amendment, I would strike 2 altogether, and I would add a phrase. What it says right now in the option table is Energy Star rated gas and propane water heater with a minimum UEF of 0.91, which could be thought of as ambiguous given the rest of your proposal. So you could add into that, including gas combi and gas water heating systems, or gas heat pump systems. The important detail is the UEF 0.91. That's what gets the point in the option table. And if you move that to there, then you get to have that point, unless we outlaw gas water heating altogether.
That makes sense to me. I don't see how this exception would prevent you from getting that point.
It does prevent you from getting that point unless you actually make it so that this, well, yeah, the building official could decide that this was a fair application of that point. It is not currently anticipated in the language in the option table.
This is a great idea, so I appreciate the feedback.
And it is peripheral to the discussion in 403.5. So, I mean, we try to accommodate the federal standard in the option table, not inside the code.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's. I I prefer to say it once, the best place. So
Go ahead, Greg, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have two quick questions. The first is, are these systems being used anywhere in the North American market currently?
yes, they are.
Okay. Are they all UL listed or some of them UL listed?
Some are UL, some are ETL, some are CSA.
Thank you.
Okay. I am hearing that some work needs to be done on this. And so I think a good option would be to table this, but we can do whatever we want. Does anybody move to do anything at this point?
Move to table.
Second,
We have a motion to table, and who is the second?
Dave Balon.
Dave Balon was the second. Okay. Further discussion.
Point of information, move to table until when?
I think it would go on the agenda at the next meeting.
Could we have that spelled out?
Sure. The chair restates the motion, and the motion is to table until the next meeting. That's I think going to be assumed in any table discussion. But
From
yes.
your perspective, Kevin, the question has to do with how would you rewrite or otherwise amend this to make it so that it would actually meet at least in minimally what's in option 5.3, and then secondarily, I don't actually see why it's even here once it's in option 5.3. There's no point for the exception.
Okay, I think what I would like to do is just to keep moving forward here is Kevin can ask if anybody wants to help him rewrite it. And that might be David, or Dave Balon, you might volunteer for that. If Kevin, do you want to convene a couple people?
I think the criticism is well taken, and I don't want to belabor the point here. I think it's simple enough to just do it. I don't think I need help.
I would agree, actually.
Okay. Well, then let's vote on this motion to table, unless there's further discussion. Okay, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we have now tabled this. We've given good feedback to the proponent, and we'll reconsider this at the next session.
And Larry and others who if you Google absorption heat pump, that gets you into this type.
Also, internal combustion heat pumps as well.
Okay, so 66 is the next one on our list. Is that a Sean Dennison one as well?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, well, we will take that down the road. 71 and 72 we already looked at. 13 is the next one on our list.
That is also one of mine.
Okay.
This is a clerical item, so it should be quick. Well, we'll see.
You have the floor.
Can we see the proposal? I know, Krista, you're working hard, so. It's very short. So this is actually a section we were just talking about. And perhaps more experienced members can correct me on this, but I believe the phrase "where installed" provides no meaning to the code. Either demand circulation systems are installed or they're not. If they are installed, then the code applies, and if they're not, they don't. So I don't see any purpose for the phrase "where installed." It's only used in 3 places in the code, and I don't see the purpose.
Okay, anybody want to respond to that or discuss?
I kind of don't mind the where installed because it helps limit it. I could see how somebody might, even though you're right, Kevin, it grammatically doesn't matter. I could see someone seeing this as a requirement to do a demand recirculation system.
May I respond to that?
Please.
I mean, when I read it, it says demand recirculation systems shall have controls. It doesn't say they shall be provided. Likewise, there are many other elements in the energy code that may or may not be incorporated into a particular building, like insulation and CMU walls or any number of options. Do we need to put where installed for everything that may not be in a system or in a building?
Krista.
Yeah, I can respond to where this came from because that's exactly why we put it in there. I can't tell you how many calls I got from people saying, why am I required to put this in? And mine saying, well, you only have to comply with it if you put that system in. Well, it says I have to put it in. I said, well, it has requirements for pools too. That doesn't mean you have to put in a pool. Oh, you're just being stupid. Click. So.
Well, out of respect, I know that everything in the code is usually come from pain. So
I'm fine with getting rid of it.
I can't speak against my proposal, I guess, but
You can withdraw it, or we can make a motion to do something with it.
I'll wait to hear a motion.
Okay. Does anybody move to do something with this?
I would move, this is Mark, I would move to accept the proposals.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the proposal. Do we have a second?
Second.
Patrick, is there a second?
Yes, that's
Okay.
me. Second.
Is there further discussion on this proposal? Okay. Dave Balin. You're on mute if you're talking, Dave Balin.
This is a modification of Lisa's proposal that we just tabled, and it's actually a sentence right out of that. I would suggest that we sort of forego this until we actually have a final set of language from Lisa's proposal, and at that point, look at whether where installed should be classed. I mean, I think where installed is fine. It doesn't make any sense, I admit, but there's a lot of things in the codes like that. And it gives Patrick some flexibility. So it seems to me that we could just vote it down right now, but it's really part of this other discussion about demand circulation water systems.
And my understanding is if we voted this forward, it would only change those few words. So it could align with any other modifications through other proposals. It's just about whether it says where installed or not.
If the committee can come up with an omnibus recirculation package, then it should probably be considered in that context.
Okay. I am not as optimistic on getting a consensus on this one, so I am going to call for a roll call vote on this. We have a motion and we have a second, and so Krista.
Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Mark Sniffen,
Yes.
Wade Craig,
Yes.
Dwayne Johnlin,
No.
Dave Balon,
No.
David Reddy,
Abstain.
Kevin Duell,
Gary's back.
oh, Gary Hickman,
Yes.
Andrea Smith,
Yes.
Ina Resputness,
Abstain.
Amy Willis,
No.
Greg Davenport,
No.
Henry Odom,
Abstain.
Gavin Tenold, oh, John Lang,
Abstain.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
No.
Jason Carter,
Yes.
motion carries 7-5 with 3 abstentions.
Okay, motion passes. Means we get to move on to the next one. Which is this 14 drain water heat recovery.
This is going to look really familiar.
Yes.
Same argument precisely.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on this one?
Make a motion that we approve as written. Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Second is Gary.
Gary, we have a second from Gary. Is there further discussion on this one? Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this one as well.
Okay, Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Mark Sniffen,
Yes.
Wade Craig,
Yes.
Dwayne Johnlin,
No.
Dave Balon,
Yes.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Gary Hickenen,
Yes.
Andrea Smith,
Yes.
Irina Resputness,
Abstain.
Amy Wheelis,
No.
Greg Davenport,
No.
Henry Odom,
Yes.
John Lang,
Abstain.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
No.
Jason Carter.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-5 with 1 abstention.
Okay. The
I
next,
think there were 2 abstentions there. I abstained.
Oh, yes, there were. Sorry.
Did.
I had John, L, and Irina abstaining. So the next one is Nick O'Neill around?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the next one I think is all you. It's number 80, which is a water heater and where it's installed in a building. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this proposal is pretty straightforward in its intent. Is to require any water heater that uses electric resistance as its primary heating source to be installed inside the conditioned space of a home. And it provides for 2 exceptions there. One is that if a builder still would like to locate the water heater in a garage or outside the conditioned space, they can do so with a water heater that has a minimum UEF of 2.0. Or if they have a small low boy water heater under 40 gallons, they can still choose to install that outside. Otherwise, the the electric resistance water heater would have to be located inside the conditioned space. And the impetus behind this proposal is to reduce the amount of standby losses that are occurring from water heaters, which, you know, are at this point the kind of the last low-hanging fruit on electric resistance water heaters. Try to minimize those by putting it inside a conditioned space where there's less of a temperature swing, and in some cases could make some beneficial use of that heat. So,
Nick?
Yes.
Thank you. Henry?
Yeah, two questions come to mind. First, why is this only for electric resistance? Are you anticipating venting requirements for natural gas? And second, some of those heat pump water heaters that have a UEF greater than 2 in the exemption, if you do put it outside, it'll turn into an electric resistance tank. And so I think we could be a bit more specific with that exemption. I know the code can't stop stupid installs of hot water heaters, but like the standard Home Depot Ream unit would basically run as electric resistance if it was outside the heated envelope or in the garage. That's my only two comments.
Nick, you can respond to those if you want as the proponent.
Sure. Yeah, and you're exactly right. The venting requirements can be an issue inside a conditioned space for gas water heaters, which is why this is only looking at electric. You know, the builder can still choose to install gas inside if they want, obviously. And then, right, we're not intending for heat pump water heaters to be installed outside where it doesn't make sense. This is really just saying that that's an allowable exemption if you choose to. I think if you're building a house and putting the water heater outside to begin with, you've kind of made that choice whether you're using electric resistance or heat pump water heater. This is only the case where it would be inside that you chose that exception, and you know, I would argue that you're not any worse off from installing a heat pump water heater outside in that case.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I don't think code can really tell people how to design, but there's definitely some opportunity there maybe to increase the savings from that system, because definitely when we model these heat pump water heaters, we're expecting a COP throughout the year, so just something to consider.
Yeah, and I guess just one other point on that, you know, I know a lot of the market based heat pump water heaters have a much higher UEF. But what I am envisioning is that the new 120 volt units might come on the market between now and when this code goes into effect that could have a lower UEF. I didn't want to, you know, disclude those from being incorporated. And also this effectively pushes you to a heat pump technology. And most of them are going to be well above that level.
All right, thanks. Mark Sniffen.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because there's so many houses I see built where the water heater is in the garage, and that's really about livable spaces in the houses and floor area. The garage, a lot of times you can almost consider it a semi-conditioned space, but to mandate them to take them out of the garages and then move them into the house and pick up floor space, I don't know how much you would save. And another point is we did require water heaters to be insulated just because of that, it seems to me. So that's my 2 cents on it. Is I think that's a pretty huge change for most of single family residents.
Thanks, Mark. Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick, we recently had this discussion at the IECC, didn't we? And part of the concern was using the term inside conditioned space, and could be overly restrictive. For example, if a home has a basement that is unconditioned, that's still a good place to put a water heater. And I guess if I were to make any suggestion, maybe a friendly amendment to maybe, rather than using the words conditioned space, maybe something like within the thermal envelope, because I think that a basement, although unconditioned, would still be considered within the thermal envelope. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Kevin is next. Unless
All right.
you lowered your hand.
Yes.
Okay, then Dave Balon is next.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I move we accept this, this proposal with the following modification, that the phrase "that utilize electric resistant heating elements as a primary source" be struck, so that it applies to all surface water heating systems. My rationale is that if we're really worried about capturing the heat from standby losses into the house, there's probably triple that amount of triple that amount if you have a gas heated system. And I would also.
Okay, Dave, I'm going to stop you right there and just ask if we have a second for the motion. Unless there were other parts of your motion. Are there other parts of your motion?
No, that's fine.
So
Okay.
is the motion to amend?
The motion
No,
is.
this is a motion to actually accept it with that modification. We don't have a motion on the table yet.
Don't we have to amend it before we can accept it if it's a change?
No, I just made the motion with that amendment. So it's in effect saying, well, I'll make this motion as long as we take this phrase out.
How about with Gary's
made a motion.
comments?
And you made a motion to accept this proposal with a modification, which I think is, I feel like that's within the rules. But we're looking for a second at this point.
I would second if Gary's comments were included as well, installed within the envelope.
Okay, but that's
That
not
would
the
be-
motion on the table. So we need a motion to be seconded before we can even discuss it.
This is Dwayne. I second it.
Okay, so we have a second for that one. Then Dave Balon, if you want to speak further in favor of the motion, please do. And then someone else could make a motion to amend it to say within condition space or within the thermal envelope or something like that. So Dave Balon, you have the floor to.
Okay. I do agree with Gary's comment about the basement, so we could make that as a friendly amendment. That said, I think that there's two reasons to do this. One is to capture the heat, the waste heat, or not the waste heat, the standby loss heat into the heated envelope, and the second is to reduce the amount of standby losses in the water heating. In the second case, that's about the same number for generally, it's about the same number for both systems, for both gas and water systems. But for the actual benefit to the house as a heating source, the gas far out is far more productive, as it were.
Okay.
So, I mean, if someone wants to make a friendly amendment to include the thermal.
Well, you can amend your motion, Dave Balon, if you want.
Oh, I can.
To suggest that some words be changed.
It would be easier if somebody else made a friendly amendment that I then accepted, as opposed to going through another entire amendment process.
I would make a friendly amendment that what has just been typed on the screen be included in your motion.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment, especially from my seconder.
Okay.
May I add another friendly amendment to strike out the exceptions?
Oh. Yeah. Oh, both exceptions or just the one?
At least the first one. I'll start there. Friendly amendment to strike out the first exception.
I'd accept that.
Okay, and Dwayne, do you also accept that?
Yes.
Okay, so the
And
motion.
this is,
Yeah,
can I
yeah.
can I lay around another one to strike the second one? I don't.
Yeah, I accept that one too.
Okay. And Dwayne, do you accept that as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. That is this stuff that's been modified that's in front of us, and I see lots and lots of hands up, so I'm going to call on you in the order in which I saw you raise your hand. And so Larry, you are next. And Larry, since you're not a member of the TAG, can you state your affiliation?
I just put my own company, Andrews Mechanical, Larry from Andrews Mechanical. I think we're missing out quite a bit of this area here of housing. I mean, we have a lot of summer homes that are on the lake sides up here, and they're only used in the summer. And a lot of the water heaters are just put underneath the home, but the sides are open. And the only time that they're ever used is in the summertime. The other thing that we have is in the orchards areas. We have electric water heaters, could be gas water heaters, that are out there for the pickers. And so I would think you'd want to include those in the exceptions too. I'd like to see the summer homes that are only used in the summer, and then the crop pickers, where we have these little huts and then they have a central place where they have their water heater and they can go get washed up. I think that's important too.
So Larry, I think that's an interesting point. Are those huts usually permitted under the building codes and energy codes?
Yeah, they're permitted, but usually we don't have in the hut, you don't have a water heater. You'd have a central area where they go to take showers, but usually that's not covered up, insulated to the energy code standards, because they're only there, when they're doing their picking. So I think that would be important for the farmers and the fruit people. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Andrea.
Yeah, originally when I raised my hand, I was proposed to the conditioned space language. However, we changed the language to include in the thermal envelope. So I think we could get behind that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David Reddy, I have you was next, but I don't see your hand up anymore. So that means Patrick is up.
I have a comment and question. What about heat pump water heaters that need a cool environment to function in reverse cycle?
I think that's a good question.
You put them in heated space. You put them in heated space, they don't go into reverse cycle, and then they go back to electric resistance.
No,
Patrick, could you explain what you mean by that?
Pardon me?
It's the other way around.
Yeah, the warmer the better.
My second comment is, historically, why service water heaters have been put in to garage spaces is when they blow and leak all over, they don't do any damage to the house. Where now, and there are the little trays that you can sit them in, but if the thing really blows, you'll be overflowing the tray, and then you're going to have water damage, water in the crawl space. And so I'm going to vote against this for both those reasons.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Mike Kennedy.
Yeah, I guess I have concerns about two things. Thermal envelope's not a defined term in the residential code. Conditioned space is. That said, I don't like the conditioned space. I mean, I think thermal envelope, if properly defined, could be a good term. My main concern is noise of heat pump water heaters. I do go into houses and do blower doors, which is like the last step. And it's almost at least a third of the houses I've seen, they're disabling the heat pump because of noise. And I think
that is very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that at the very least, you can have what is essentially it could be insulated, but a thermally isolated, you want noise, you want good walls and insulation between the occupied space and the heat pump water heater. At the very least. And, building a insulated wall onto the outside of that might be a good idea. It would be a good idea, but I think we need to be careful about what we're doing here. Personally, if I had one, I'd want it on a concrete floor just for the noise perspective.
Essentially,
I
you're
have,
saying,
I have one, and I'm glad it's on a concrete floor.
yeah, essentially you're saying that you need a mechanical room.
Or basement.
Thanks, Mike.
Right, but isolated with noise isolation, which generally means insulation, separated by insulation. And the current conditioned space thing talks about uninsulated separation.
So I guess, Mike, you suggested that we define the term thermal envelope if we wanted to use it, which I think is a positive suggestion.
Yeah, I suppose. And I actually, if I was doing this, I wouldn't strike exception 1 because I don't think we should be creating further headwinds to heat pump water heaters. I agree there's some efficiency here, but the heat pump helps offset those extra standby losses of being in the garage. And definitely the garage is a good place for them.
Okay.
Excuse me, the correct term is building thermal envelope, and that is defined.
In the residential code, energy code?
In the code, yeah. So building thermal envelope would be italicized.
Okay, so I guess that's a good.
But it uses conditioned space as its thing. And so if you look at the conditioned space, you can't have an insulated wall. Like you couldn't have a mechanical closet with both walls insulated. You get a mechanical closet with the exterior wall insulated, but technically not the interior wall.
So let's say we go to the garage scenario that everybody's talking about. Is a garage inside the building thermal envelope?
No, unless the garage is heated.
Mike, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
The garage would not be in the thermal envelope unless the exterior walls of it were built to the envelope code and the interior walls were uninsulated. The walls between the house and the garage, and that's never the case. The walls between the house and the garage are always insulated, and usually the garage walls are not totally up to code.
So the scenario that has been mentioned by a few different people of putting in the garage would not be accommodated by adding the words building thermal envelope. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if we want to put it in the garage, this doesn't do that.
Yeah, and I'm totally on board with electric resistance tanks not being in the garage. It's just the heat pump water heater case where the noise is the issue.
Okay, so you like the original proposal, basically, without all these modifications, because that's what that would do, right?
Me too. I'm with Mike. I would have voted for the original one, not this one.
Okay. We're going to hear from everybody, and then we're probably going to vote on what we see in front of us, and then we might, right after that, vote on the original proposal or some subset of it. Okay, I have Kevin up next.
Yes, through the chair, the maker of the motion has stated a couple times that a gas water heater provides more heat than other kinds of water heaters, and I'd like clarification on that.
Gas water heater has a requirement of 0.62, which is essentially 30% roughly of what the gas makes is what the water is lost to flue losses and jacket losses. Because of the way that you have to design a gas water heater, much of the gas, there's additional gas or there's additional jacket losses either because of the flue or because of the other changes in the tank itself that add to the losses. So typically some amount of the losses, probably close to double what would be in a regular electric water tank, which has none of those issues, would appear as heat loss from the tank.
So a follow-up question then, if those losses are through the flue, that would be through the flue, not
right. That's true.
To the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all 30% doesn't go into the house. That's absolutely correct. And but some fraction of it does. And I think what I've read here is that this is a number like double the losses from the electric heat, which is still way less than the total losses from the system.
But I guess the point was that the point here is to capture heat that would otherwise be lost from the conditioned space.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying is there are losses through the flue, but I don't know how that would translate to heat gain to the conditioned space other than through the jacket.
No, well, there's flue losses in addition to the jacket because of the flue having to go to the house. And there's additional losses at the exchanger and the burner where you can't do insulation, and thus you have extra losses there. That's just in the standby mode.
Okay, I guess I can see there might be some small additional heat gain from a gas water heater to the conditioned space versus an electric water heater, but I'm questioning the double or triple note that you're making, since most of that heat you're referring to would be through the flue and therefore out the building.
I'm basically saying a third of that heat is going out of the building. I mean, 2/3 of that heat is going out of the building.
The intent of the proposal is to not recapture flue losses, but to recapture other losses.
Right.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay. I think we're agreed on that. Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see a lot of new construction homes with heat pump hot water heaters in them. They're great. In my view, the best place to install them is the garage. Heat pump hot water heaters discharge quite a bit of cold air, and you really don't want to move them inside conditioned space because then it combats the heating in the home. If you are going to put it inside the house, you want to have a ducting kit on there, which many of the manufacturers make available. So I think as we tweak this proposal here, I liked exception 1 because I believe that means all the heat pump hot water heaters. I think we should try and encourage proper application of the heat pump hot water heaters here and not be cooling off an area we're trying to heat.
Okay. I think
that's true what Greg said.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick. We're going to do Wade, Henry, and then I think since noon is the appointed time, unless somebody makes a motion to extend it, I think let's vote on this. And if that goes down, I think we'll vote on I will ask for a motion on the original proposal or some other piece of that. So go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, comment on the striking the electric resistance heating. Because of combustion air requirements and having to have combustion air from the outside for gas burning appliances, by striking that, you're basically saying that if you put a gas water tank inside, it has to be a direct vent style, which has limitations in and of itself. So, because you can't draw combustion air from inside the heated envelope, according to the code.
Oh, yep. Good point.
That's true also.
Henry.
I generally agree with the last 2 comments. I know I'm the one who came up with striking out exception 1, but I was assuming that it could be installed in the garage. Integrated units work best in the garage or the basement, so we need to make sure we can incentivize that. To Patrick's comment a while ago, just in general for everybody, the warmer the heat source, the better for any sort of heat pump. You never want a heat pump in the coldest environment possible. But thinking of that, split system CO2 units actually work great outdoors. And so we also want to allow that kind of system. And so maybe that would fall under exception 1 as well, open up more possibilities. And I'm not totally positive on this, but I think you're only not allowed to pull combustion air from a sleeping unit indoors. I think you could still put a natural draft in a basement, but you cannot pull air from livable space. I don't know if anyone can check me on that, but that's my take on combustion air for gas. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Henry. I am sensing And if we were all in the same room, I'd look for head nods, but I'm sensing that this proposal with all these strikeouts in it is not going to pass. And so I want to take all the comments, but I also want to find something today that we can agree on. So go ahead. I have Larry up next, then Andrea, then yeah. So go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, as a journeyman plumber, what Patrick said wasn't quite correct. The relief valve has to be piped to the outside, is not allowed to be piped in the pan. And then the pan has to be piped to the outside too. So, I mean, just for clarity here, if you have a water heater inside, it has to have the relief valve piped outside and the pan piped to a floor drain. Okay, so just
Okay.
to clarify, thank you.
Thanks, Larry. It's always good to have. That's why we're a technical advisory group. Andrea.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a follow-up question, but it sounds like we will get to that in a little bit. So when we go to vote or not vote, so.
Yeah, I'd like to vote pretty soon, but we still have 4 hands up right now. So David, ready?
So based on Henry's comment, it sounded like, I don't know, can he withdraw? I think he suggested striking out exception 1, and it sounded like he was taking that back, and I fully support adding exception 1 back in as well. Can we do that?
Yeah, if you want to withdraw your friendly amendment to do that, and we get the primary and the second to both agree to that, then I think we can do that.
As a primary, I would agree to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was just about exception 1, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Wade.
Yeah, I probably should have put my hand down after I talked last time.
Okay, no worries, Dwayne.
Yeah, question for Larry. It's been mentioned that a direct vent would be required for gas appliances. My thought is that's great, but I'd like to know if you think that's an issue, and also that for heat pumps that a duct kit would be required. To me, these seem like they're completely sensible, but I just, from a plumber's perspective, shouldn't that be the way we go?
The problem I see with the direct vent kit on the heat pump water heater, I think it'd work great in Seattle, but I have problems with it over here when it's below 0 out to be doing that, because I don't think you'd be gaining much from your heat pump water heater. The other thing I'm concerned about is what I've heard here is that we cannot use combustion air for a furnace anymore in a house. And I'm thinking about all the 80% furnaces that are put in over here in the basements that are using the air inside the space to provide combustion air. It is important to have the doors and the openings to enough area so you can have the combustion air. I am a proponent for bringing your own outside air into gas furnaces. I would be honest with you there. But I think in my part of the territory, I think it's more important to think about what you're doing with that water heater. If we're using electric to heat the space, and then we're providing a heat pump water heater in that space to get those credits, I think we need to really look at what the energy cost, what are we really gaining anything there? I mean, we might in the summertime gain a little bit because you would get some cooling. But the biggest problem that the builders have over here with the heat pump water heaters is the recoverability of them. And that's why everybody's pretty much that I know of is going to the gas instantaneous gas water heater over here, because the people keep complaining about not having the recover ability. So when you got a family of 4 or family of 5 and they go in to take a shower, I mean, your electric runs out fairly quickly, where the gas instantaneous keeps you going. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Before I leave the floor, could I make a motion to extend for 15 minutes?
Yes, please do.
So a motion to extend till 12:15.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, I saw Luke first, so Luke's our second. The voice vote on this, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Thank you, Dwayne. Okay, next on the list is Greg.
I was thinking along the same lines to extend. I'm glad somebody did it. Just a quick comment on the last thing here. I have a very large builder over in Eastern Washington that uses a lot of heat pump hot water heaters, and they haven't had too much pushback. Some of the heat pump hot water heaters have the quick recovery feature where the electric resistance kicks on. So I'm aware that it is sometimes an issue if the system is undersized, but I think a lot of builders across the state have had good experience with the heat pump hot water heaters.
Thanks, Greg. Kevin.
Yes, through the chair, one of the previous speakers mentioned some comments about direct vent of gas appliances, gas water heaters in particular. That's certainly possible. Those appliances cost more than a naturally vented device, and routing of those vents can be problematic, but not always. Can be very simple sometimes. But basically, it would add cost if those had to be direct vent.
Okay.
Wait, it adds cost for that piece of equipment, but if you don't have a direct vent, then whatever space that is located in has to be fully insulated, and that costs more than the vent does.
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
If it's not direct vent, if you just have an opening to the outside that lets air flow into your mechanical room in your house, then that mechanical room has to be fully insulated on all sides, and that insulation costs more than just running the little direct vent across to your appliance.
It would be interesting to see a cost study on that. It's not just the insulation and the venting itself, but also the appliance itself that would add cost. And also, are you suggesting this would be the case when it's required to be installed inside?
Yeah, if it's in the conditioned space.
Have we confirmed that combustion air has to come from the exterior?
From what I heard from what Henry said is it can come from dwelling spaces, but it can come from other interior spaces. Is that true? Henry, is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm looking around right now, but I believe that to be true.
Okay.
That's what I recall, that it could come from a non-sleeping room. Anyway,
Jason,
point's been made.
Jason, you have the floor.
Yeah, just two things related to what Kevin and Dwayne were just talking about. The first thing there is I'm with Dwayne on this. It's much more simplistic to do a high efficiency direct vent appliance where possible. One of the things to look at too is venting in plastic piping is usually significantly more, it's faster, so it saves labor, and it's also less cost than these double wall ventilation systems for like gravity vent or low efficiency appliances. So I'm with Dwayne on that one. When you look at the total cost and the labor as a mechanical contractor, you're way better off to go with a direct vent appliance that's higher efficiency every time when you factor in the labor and the cost of the venting.
Thanks, Jason.
The second part is back to what Dwayne said about the heat pump water heaters is we install a lot of heat pump water heaters and we run into this issue a lot. Cold climates, it's great to be able to install heat pump water heaters in garages where you have a lot of air volume, where you can disperse out the cooling effect and not affect the living space. The other issue that we have is whenever heat pump water heaters are designed to be installed inside the conditioned space, we have a lot of challenges. I think Mike brought up earlier, noise, it's a huge problem. The second thing is the venting. So logistics with getting the venting out. These heat pump water heaters, if you're gonna do it correctly, you have to have it in and out, right? Because you don't want to affect the space like Greg Davenport said earlier, you don't want to fight the heating system. So you have to vent in and out, and you don't want to affect the air pressures in there as well. So you got it in and out that are somewhere between 6 and 8 inch diameter ducts that need to be insulated. And so that has a huge logistical effect. I think it's much better where possible to put heat pump water heaters either in a basement or in a garage and have that flexibility to encourage more adoption of heat pump water heaters. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We're extending, we've extended, I want to make sure we have all the comments, but I think at some point we need to get the language in here such that we all like it. So Mike Kennedy, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I had a gas appliance, I'd rather have it in the garage. And I know that's not thermally the most efficient, but I feel like discouraging gas heat should be done more directly than this. And I think from an air quality and an air leakage standpoint, I'd rather not have the combustion device in the house. You know, it adds a lot of penetrations, some not such great dampers that are going to leak. And it, you know, introduces a possible indoor contamination source. So I kind of like the original proposal better. So.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm hearing lots of people speak in support of the original proposal as well. So I think I see 2 hands up, Greg and Dwayne. I'd like to vote really soon, but go ahead, Greg. Or maybe your hand's just still up. Dwayne.
Yeah, I wonder if we should have an exception for a split system. Like that Sandon unit where the one is supposed to be out, it's supposed to be outside and the tank is inside.
Are you suggesting one handle?
Yeah, I'm just asking the experts here if it makes sense to have exception number 2 be split system heat pump.
Any experts?
I think that's a good idea.
Because they're not rated in UEF. Yes.
Okay, so I'm hearing support for that idea. Is that a friendly amendment to the proponent and second?
I'm willing to push that forward as a friendly amendment to explicitly state that the split heat pump hot water heaters are an exception.
Okay.
I think wouldn't they meet the 2 UEF criteria?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
They're about that.
Yeah, they're gonna be already in there.
Yeah.
I'm already covered.
I'm not sure they're rated with UEF.
They are actually.
Are they?
Yeah. It should be pointed out also that when you have a split system, the tank that's in question is actually inside the house. So it's exactly the same question. It's exactly the same problem with standby as a regular electric water heat. It just doesn't have any elements in it. But it's sitting there at 120 degrees anyway.
In the house.
Okay. And it has the same insulation requirements. So you don't have to worry about a split system because all the CO2 and all of that process is outside. It's just like having a heat pump outside.
Okay. David Reddy.
I guess Mike expressed concern about having gas appliances in the home. I mean, I don't see, I think, as somebody pointed out, the direct vent equipment solves a lot of the potential issues with that. And also that isn't any different than a furnace, really. So I think I still support this revision here to remove the electric resistance part.
Okay. Thanks, David. Dave Balin, you still have your hand up?
Sorry.
Andrea.
Yeah, so actually I don't have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Kevin.
Yeah, so if we can confirm that a natural vent appliance could still be installed in the thermal envelope. I think this is passable, but my concern is if that's not true, this would effectively require a upgrade to most likely a condensing style appliance to be direct vent, or a tankless type, and that would have implications for the credits table and the options table rather.
Does anybody have an answer for Kevin that they?
Well, my reading of the conditioned space definition is you can't have an insulated wall between the conditioned space and your space and have it still be considered conditioned. So if you actually insulated the walls around a mechanical room and opened a hole to the outside in it, I don't think technically it would be considered conditioned space at that point. Unless it has uninsulated ducts in it.
Does that answer your question, Kevin?
I guess so. That one way or another, you could make it work.
I've got a little more to add to that.
Please, Luke.
So from what I understand of the IRC and combustion airs, they will allow for outside combustion air, or excuse me, inside combustion air for naturally drafted gas appliances, where the air leakage rate is no lower than 0.4 ACH, which is about 8 ACH at 50. So our code requires a minimum ACH of 0.25 or something, or a maximum of 0.25 or something like that. So I think technically naturally drafted gas appliances aren't allowed in our code by default because of the air change requirements in the code. And I will agree with Mike Kennedy that if you're thermally isolating a mechanical room from the inside of the house, it is no, it may be, I guess if the exterior walls of the mechanical room are insulated, it may be considered indirectly heated conditioned space, but again, the insulation between the interior of the house and the mechanical room kind of nullifies that.
Thanks, Luke. Mark Sniffen.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that this seems really problematic when we start talking about replacement water heaters. And I think you would have to address some kind of exception saying, because you can't make someone to take it out of their garage and find room in their house to put their water heater in. So I think we really need to address that portion of this in as a blanket statement here. That's my 2 cents.
Agreed.
Okay, Wade.
Yeah, I was just clarifying the combustion air that 402.4.4 says that the combustion air to the outside shall be located outside of the building thermal envelope. So with the unusually tight construction that we have, that's the restriction.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's vote on this. I don't see any more hands up of people who haven't talked very, very recently. So let's do a
I think
roll
we had a good point, and I think adding an exception for replacement units might be a reasonable thing here.
Okay, so there's a friendly amendment to add an exception for replacement of existing units. Is that acceptable to the proponent or to the maker of the
Actually,
motion?
that should go in chapter 5. Not here.
This only applies to new construction, correct?
Right, that's right.
Doesn't chapter 5 directly reference this section?
It does.
I
So
don't know.
could we just ask that this be done, that staff put that into the appropriate spot in chapter 5, that exception?
I think that sounds good. I think that's adequate direction. Is that adequate direction, Krista?
Sure.
Okay, so is that friendly to the proponent, maker of the motion in the second?
That would be acceptable to the proponent.
Is that acceptable to the maker of the motion and the second?
Yes.
Okay, so I believe we are going to then vote on this. So let's do a roll call vote because I don't believe everybody is completely in agreement. So Krista,
Yep, sorry, just waiting for the noise to stop in the background. Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Mark Sniffen,
No.
Wade Craig,
No.
Dwayne Johnlin,
Yes.
Dave Balon,
Yes.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Gary Hickinen,
No.
Andrea Smith,
No.
Irina Rasputnis,
Yes.
Amy Willis,
Yes.
Greg Davenport,
Yes.
Henry Odom,
Yes.
John Lang,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes,
No.
Luke Howard,
Yes.
Jason Carter.
No.
Motion carries 10-6.
okay. And that brings us to 12:15, which is our adjusted appointed time. Thank you so much for being here today. We will send out the agenda soon for the next session. We've passed a few things, we've deferred a few things. Thank you so much. Please review everything ahead of time so we can get through the list of proposals in the next few sessions.
And
Thanks a lot.
Krista, could you please send me that list of names? I got 4 people emailing me, but I don't have everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. We are adjourned.